The story begins with the student being in the library of the University of Chinese Medicine. The guy carefully walked between the shelves and studied the books. He decided to take one of them. The student was very excited and focused. He studied the books carefully. A stranger to the couple appeared from behind. He was wearing a hooded robe. He was heading towards the student. The student noticed a shadow behind him. He realized that someone had quietly approached him. The stranger said in a calm voice for the guy to take the 10th book on the left, on the top shelf. The student was afraid of the stranger's voice. He began to look for the right book on the shelf. The student was surprised to notice that the book he needed was standing exactly in the place that the stranger had told him to look for. The student turned and thanked his interlocutor for his help in finding the book. The student looked at the stranger very carefully and became worried. The student noticed that his interlocutor was wearing thick clothes with a hood. The student felt the talisman begin to glow on his body. He was very scared. The stranger stood calmly and looked at the student. The guy started to disappear. As a result, the student completely disappeared, and only a book remained in his place. The book fell from a height downwards. The student reached out his hand in time and was able to catch it. The guy said goodbye to the missing student and said that everything would be okay. The stranger told the disappeared student that he would return here in 2,500 years. The teacher told the students during class that they would have a final exam next class. He added that students should pay special attention to the last topic called The Secrets of the Pinghu Pulses. One of the girls said that she did not have time to grasp the topic. The man sternly reminded the students that most of them were already in their 4th year. He added that he will teach the 4 components of diagnosis to those students who receive the highest score. The students thought. They were very interested in the teacher's proposal. The teacher headed for the exit. He told the students that the lesson was over for them. The students were surprised by him. I couldn't believe that Professor Lee would personally teach anyone. The guy thought about it. He knew that the 4 diagnostic components had been developed over time. One of the students said that the candidate must get the highest score in order for the professor to start teaching him. The guy told his friends named Jing Fan and Sun Qi that they could read something. This will help them score a couple of points. The student was unhappy. He didn't like the suggestion to read something. The student reminded his interlocutors that they had come to them from the Institute of Western Medicine. The main character jumped up from his seat. He decided to leave with his friends. The guy invited the other students to return to the bedrooms. They headed towards the exit. The student with glasses was unhappy. He didn't like that his friends didn't take him seriously. The guy told his friend Sun Qi that the main character was acting strange. He usually doesn't like going back to the dorm. The student replied that their friend had dyed his hair gray. The guy looked at the main character and said that he looked matured. The main character's name was Su. He was a 4th-year student. The guy turned 2,500 years old. The guy found himself in the deep antiquity of the world and was able to live to the present day. After rebirth, the main character's jade pendant became part of the flow technique for the participants. With this technique, one can absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After mastering this skill, the guy received eternal life. From ancient times to this day, I have been able to travel many roads and meet many people. The guy was always surrounded by war and discord. He hid wherever he could and avoided numerous contacts with people. For the main character, the books became best friends. The guy read a lot of canons, but couldn't find the answer to how he could go back. For the guy, everything changed today. He walked accompanied by his friends. The next day, the students had to take an exam. They had 90 minutes. The teacher told the students that their time was up. The students began to write. A student wearing glasses energetically and carefully wrote down test tasks. 2 students sat and were bored. They were in no hurry to solve the exam tasks. Su was completely focused. His attention was absorbed in the test task. The main character carefully filled out the card with the exam results. The magic skill called Flow has another ability. The main character has the ability to collect images of anything in the spiritual palace. All the books he has ever read also go there. The main character had his personal palace of memories. All his knowledge was there. All the guy's accumulated knowledge was always available to him. The next day, the teacher at the university spoke about the results of the exam. The man disgruntledly told the students that they were in the worst group he had ever had. He was unhappy that the students wrote everything so poorly. The teacher said that there were some good works. He said that the Logan guy was able to score 90 points. The student jumped to his feet joyfully. He decided that he showed the best result. Logan told the other students that they couldn't compete with him. The guy decided that he had already received personal training from Professor Lee. The student asked the teacher when they could start studying. The teacher looked through the documents. He answered the student that his result was not the best. The teacher told the surprised student to sit down. The teacher asked the students in the audience which of them was the Sui. The main character realized that the teacher was addressing him. He was sitting next to his friends. Logan was amazed. He couldn't believe that the main character could score 100 points. The teacher showed the exam papers and said that the student received 100 marks. The students were amazed. They couldn't believe that any of them had been able to fully learn the secrets of Pinhu impulses. The guy joyfully shouted to everyone present that they underestimated them. He sat silently. He saw in his mind as if something were moving in space. The student was very happy. He was pleased and proud that his friend wrote the exam better than anyone else. He remained silent. He showed absolutely no emotion after the teacher's words. The teacher told the student to come to his reception center. He promised to personally train him. The teacher told the guy that he would teach him the 4 components of diagnostics. Friends were sitting in the student room. One of them suggested we go today and relax. The main character asked where they would go today and would it be to Soyuzhuang. The friend looked slyly at his interlocutors and said that he had a better idea. The guy looked at his friends with a smile and asked if they knew what he had in his hands. He held the tickets. The overjoyed student realized that his friend was holding an invitation card to the Menxing Conservatory of Music's centennial celebration. The main character said thoughtfully that he felt that Xiao Yuzhuang was actually better. Friends joyfully began shouting to the main character that the mentioned conservatory was full of beauties. One of them even said that they might meet the Baichu sisters. The guy looked at his watch. He shouted excitedly to his friends that they didn't have much time. Near the Menxing Music Conservatory, there were a lot of guests. The building was decorated. Near the entrance to the building, there were a lot of beautiful girls and they were happily talking to each other. The main character came with his friends. The guys looked at everything around in surprise. The students were very happy because they saw the beautiful girls. The guy looked away. He saw something very interesting. Su turned his head to the side. His friend stood nearby and told the students to look. The main character saw 2 girls running. The student shouted that they were seeing the first beauties of Menxin. The guy told his friends that they now see the Baichu sisters in front of them. The student stood excited and wanted to approach the girls opposite. The guy said that the Baichu sisters are very beautiful. The main character looked carefully at the sisters. They seemed special to him. Su-yi realized that the girls were surrounded by a pure aura. Previously, they could have become strong warriors, but now they are just ordinary people. The main character felt something unpleasant from the side. He turned there. I suddenly noticed a stranger standing nearby. He realized that he was absorbing the aura around him. The main character took a closer look. He realized that he did not expect to see this at his time. He realized that he was seeing a living aura warrior. Su-yi knew that aura warriors are masters who collect the energy of heaven and earth. Ancient times are considered the golden time for craftsmen. Then the earth and sky were filled with an aura. Therefore, there used to be many strong warriors and generals. Due to industrialization, the natural aura was released. This led to the decline of the aura warriors. As a result, they can no longer be found. The main character looked at the walking stranger with great attention. He looked very suspicious. The aura warrior followed the girls closely. He gradually approached them. The guy reached out his hand to grab the bag the girl was carrying with her. The robber ran very sharply to the side along with the stolen handbag. Su was surprised. He couldn't believe that an aura warrior could be an ordinary thief. The girls rushed after the robber. One of the sisters demanded that the guy return the bag while walking. The girl ran with all her might. She told her sister as she walked to call the detective. The sister looked at her interlocutor and told her confidently that she could handle it. The girl indicated to her surprised sister that she should do everything as she told her. The sister told the girl to take care of herself. The girl told her interlocutor not to worry. Little sister called Detective Bath. She told the officer that she needed help right away. The policeman said that reinforcements were already on their way. The main character closely watched his sister. The main character realized that everything was getting very interesting. He knew that Squad K was a unit of aura warriors. The girl ran towards the building. She decided that she should meet the detective and the squad first. The girl ran inside the building. She noticed her sister lying unconscious on the floor. Bai Chu, in a frightened voice, asked her unconscious sister if everything was okay with her. The attacker was hiding around the corner at this time. 24. The girl ran with all her might to her sister. The guy jumped out from around the corner and waved his hand. The attacker ran up and hit the girl with all his strength with his fist. She fell down. The girl did not have time to defend herself from the powerful blow. The guy remained standing nearby. The attacker looked at his victim and said in a calm voice that the girl and her sister were just ordinary people. The guy told the unconscious sister not to stick her nose where it shouldn't. The guy with an evil smile told the girl that he would now destroy the squad. The main character appeared in the window. He told the intruder that he was using force wastefully for petty theft. The attacker turned around displeased. He could not understand who dared to disturb him. Su Ye looked at his interlocutor and said that he was not good enough to be called an aura warrior. The guy thought dissatisfied to himself that he didn't even feel how the main character appeared next to him. The attacker looked angrily at the guy and said that he advised him to leave as soon as possible. Su answered his interlocutor that he heard from him only the usual words of a low-grade villain. The criminal got angry. He swung his hand to demolish the main character. The attacker shouted to his opponent that he was going to die. He prepared to hit him. The guy hit the ground with his fist after a powerful blow. Stones scattered around. After hitting the ground, dust rose. The attacker looked around him with great attention. The guy looked in front of him and was surprised to notice how a large hole appeared at the site of the impact. The attacker turned his head in all directions. He couldn't understand where the main character had gone. Sui was on the side, he slyly asked the attacker. Who did he lose? The attacker angrily rushed to the attack to demolish the main character. Su calmly looked at the guy running towards him. He prepared to fight back. The main character, with a very deft and quick movement, deviated to the side. With a very sharp movement, he raised his hand up. He prepared to attack the guy during the flight. The main character hit the guy with a powerful upward blow while flying. The stranger flew to the side after the attack. The main character decided to attack him further. Su swung both arms. He decided to hit the attacker again with all his might. The main character jumped up with all his strength and hit the attacker in the stomach with both hands. The stranger, after another attack from the main character, flew to the side. The attacker fell to the ground. He no longer had the strength to attack further. The stranger came to his senses. He looked at the main character and asked, "Where did he come from?" Su calmly looked at the attacker and said that he was an ordinary guy and he did not like to see girls being beaten. The attacker decided that he saw in front of him a new fighter from Detachment K. The guy realized that he had no other choice. He decided to use his last chance. The guy handed the device to the main character. He said it was created by the Baichu family with Chinese support. The attacker added that the girl called the police and he needed to run away. The attacker prepared to run away. The main character shouted to the guy to wait. Su looked angrily at the attacker and said that he wanted to talk to him again. The main character hit the attacker with all his might. He fell to the ground. The girls were sitting near the wall at that time. My sister began to come to her senses. She slowly opened one eye. Su looked down from the roof of the building and noticed how the special police squad had arrived. The main character took a closer look and noticed that the stranger gave him ordinary VR glasses. Su looked carefully at the glasses and decided that they would be suitable for him for games. The man spoke on the phone with the governor. He said that using mentioned students as bait turned out to be a bad idea. After the conversation, the man was unhappy. He still held the phone in his hand. Suddenly, a girl approached the man from behind. She called him Uncle Van. The girl told her interlocutor that it was her decision together with her sister. She explained that they didn't want the fruits of Grandpa's work to fall into the wrong hands. Van explained to his sister that he came here to help her. The girl thanked him. Baichu looked to the side excitedly. She wanted to say something important. The girl told the man that Squad K was unable to pick up the VR glasses. She added that she saw the man who took them. Baichu reported that the glasses were taken by a student who had come to the party earlier. The main character arrived at the dorm room. He decided to examine the virtual glasses. Sui decided that the VR glasses were made to order. They are intended for aura warriors. There must be some mystery behind the glasses. Two students entered the room. One of them asked the main character how could he leave them. The students were very surprised when they saw the main character's new glasses. One of the students shouted that he saw in front of him exclusive VR glasses for fantasy. Friend in surprise. The main character approached. He said that he had no idea that he was playing games secretly from everyone. The main character replied to his friends that he decided to just try to play. Su told the surprised students that he did not understand what could be interesting about games. The guy said that 2 years ago a large-scale VR game was developed. The game was warmly received by the players. It gave a feeling of complete immersion and ease of control. Inside the game, there is a huge open world with a large degree of freedom. The student happily said that the fantasy game is wonderful. Su Ye invited his friends to discuss the game later. On Monday, he has a lesson with Professor Lee. Friends told the main character that the professor asked him to come to his clinic tomorrow. The students told the guy that the professor wanted to teach him the 4 practices of medicine. The girl was at home. She decided to go into the bathroom and take a shower. My sister stood inside the shower stall under the streams of water. She decided to wash herself. After the shower, the girl wrapped herself in a white towel and prepared to go out. My sister came in and told the girl that she had forgotten the tiger cub in the bathroom. The interlocutor was very happy that her little toy was found. The girl thanked her sister. She decided to help her apply the ointment to her back. The interlocutor replied that the wound on her back had almost healed. Baichi looked at the huge bruise on the girl's back. She prepared to apply the ointment. The girl began to rub the ointment on her friend's back at the sight of the bruise. The sister screamed in pain. The girl said in a dissatisfied voice that Baichi was pretending. The girl smiled and said that if Western medicine does not help them, then they can try Chinese. My sister was surprised. She asked her interlocutor, "Is she really suggesting trying Chinese medicine?" The two sisters came together for an appointment at a Dr. Lee's medical clinic. The doctor asked the patients what problems they had. The main character in a white coat stood nearby. The girls introduced themselves. One of them was called Yuran and the other's name was Ijan. Su was very worried when he saw his sisters. He didn't understand what they could have forgotten in this place. The main character fearfully decided that it would be very bad if the sisters recognized him. The guy told the teacher that his grandfather had returned and his mother was calling him for dinner. The man replied to his interlocutor that his grandfather was here only yesterday. The man sternly demanded that the guy show him what he had learned in a month. The sisters were sitting on benches near the table. The teacher looked sternly at the guy and said that there are no excuses in the path of medicine. Yuran looked at the guy with great suspicion. She stared at him silently. The main character realized that he had no other choice. He began to put on his mask. The doctor told the patients that his student named Su was next to him. The guy asked the girls in a calm voice what was bothering them. The sisters hesitated. They did not know what to say to their interlocutor in response. Yuran said that a month ago she was hit by a bicycle. She used Western ointment, but it did not help her. Yizhan emotionally said that a month ago she had a fight in the forest with a big bear. The predator swung at her and she flew away. The main character thought to himself that his patient had a strange sense of humor. The doctor looked carefully at the girl's hand. He studied her pulse. The man asked the main character what he could say. "Did you say so?" "That the girl's blood is blocked, you need to do a massage and cleansing." Yuran said that her little sister just wants to skip class. She went to the doctor and pretended to get a certificate. The doctor told the main character to massage the patient. Yuran shouted displeasedly that she was protesting. She didn't like massage from a man. The patient went behind the curtain. The main character could not understand that anyone could really care about the gender of the doctor. Yizhan shouted to the guy that she would tear him apart if he did anything to his sister. The main character thought to himself that he was more concerned about the patient, Yuran. The guy noticed that the girl was watching him very carefully. It's as if she sees right through him. The patient undressed. She told the guy that her sister was adding to his problems. The girl said that her sister was very worried about her. Yizhan recommended this clinic to her because she had read a lot of good reviews on the internet. The main character calmly told the girl that he would definitely help her. Su looked at the girl with excitement. He told her that he would cure her. The main character thought to himself excitedly that his heart even trembled. Yuran looked closer with suspicion. She decided that she had already seen the doctor somewhere. The patient lay down on the couch. The main character told the girl that if she was hurt or unpleasant, then she should tell him. The main character looked at the girl's back and noticed a strong bruise there. Su held his hand near the girl's body. He felt a powerful aura. The main character realized that he felt the aura of the guy who was attacking the girls. Su-yi realized that the bruise on the girl's body did not go away for a long time, since the attacker's aura had accumulated in one place. The main character knew that injuries that were inflicted by aura must also be treated with aura. Yuran shouted loudly and displeasedly that she was hot. The main character realized that his method was working. Su-yi understood that the patient should feel the heat. Chaotic aura accumulated in one place. The main character put his hand on the girl's back. He decided to dissolve the aura. Su kept his hand on the girl's back. A blue glow appeared around. The patient felt that her body was trembling very much, as if it were about to fly. The girl felt that she was very pleased. Yuran felt that she seemed to have wings. The main character told the girl that she could try to get up and move. The patient was surprised. She asked her sister if everything was really done with her treatment. The patient told the main character that her pain was completely gone. The guy explained to the girl that she needed to rest and not get wet. Yirun excitedly thought to herself that she remembered where she saw the guy. The girl looked at Sue's back. She realized that he was very similar to the guy she had seen before. The patient looked at Dr. Sue with great suspicion and turned to him. The girl asked the main character if they had met somewhere before. The patient left the office. She thanked the doctor. Her joyful sister ran up to the girl. Yizan asked her sister with excitement whether the doctor had groped her. Yuran replied that she was fine. Her back went away. The younger sister stuck her tongue out at the doctor. The girl told the guy that she had confused him with another person. Suye replied that he had a fairly standard appearance. The patient said goodbye to the doctor near the entrance. The guy told his sisters to be careful on the road. To himself, the guy was very happy because Yuran didn't recognize him. The main character noticed something suspicious. It was as if white lightning had flown from the side. The guy took a closer look and realized that the girls were being watched again. He decided to step aside. The main character noticed how lightning directed him towards a stranger in an alley. So I asked the attacker if he was really spying on the girls again. The guy was unhappy because he met the main character. He decided to do things differently this time. The attacker told his opponent threateningly that he would use a special technique against him. The guy's body shook. Pieces of clothing began to fly off of him and he became stronger. Very quickly, the attacker became very big and pumped up. The main character noticed with fear and excitement that a huge monster appeared very suddenly in front of him. The big guy shouted angrily to the main character that he wouldn't stop him from putting on glasses. The guy hit the green trash can with all his might. He flew to the side. The main character looked in fear as a huge box flew towards him at full speed. Sue barely had time to turn back to the side. The box crashed into the wall at full speed. The main character was sitting on a rope. He asked his opponent cheerfully, was this really the technique his teacher taught him? Sue looked displeased at the attacker and said that he had really become stronger. The main character wanted to tell his opponent something important. He said that the guy would live for 2 minutes. The fighter shouted to the guy that he would use the League Mentor's technique against him. The guy jumped up. He shouted to the main character that he would not be able to dodge all the time. Sue thought to himself that he was hearing the usual villainous dialogue. The main character said that he was very bored. The stranger called the guy a stupid bastard. The fighter landed on the ground. The main character at this time suddenly jumped to the side. The guy accelerated very quickly and shouted for him to quickly take the fight from him. The main character grabbed the rope with his hand. He decided to tie up his opponent. Sue asked the fighter why no one is helping him. The guy shouted that the mentor allowed him to act alone. The main character wrapped a rope around his opponent. He told the attacker that he was being deceived. Sue shouted to his rival that he would have kicked him out after failing the mission if he had been his teacher. The main character began to tighten the rope. He prepared to finish off his opponent. Very quickly, the fighter found himself completely tied up. He couldn't even move. The main character silently looked at the tied-up guy. He knew that he did not have long to live. Sue told the tied-up opponent that he was afraid of punishment for failure. Now the fighter wanted to make up for lost time. The guy strained himself and broke the ropes. He shouted to the main character that he would tear out his tongue. The main character fell to the ground. The guy swung to finish him off. Sue took a fighting stance. He shouted to his opponent that he could risk attacking him. The fighter got angry. He swung his fist wide to finish off the guy. Sue looked at his opponent with excitement. He decided to extend his hand to him. The main character pointed his finger at the guy. At this time, the fighter threw a forward punch with his hand. Sue told his opponent that he could try to attack him if he could. The main character angrily explained to the stranger that his time was up. The fighter felt very severe damage to his body in different places. The guy began to tremble from side to side. His body began to shrink. The main character watched with great interest as the fighter began to shrink in size and sway. As a result, the guy could not stay on his feet and fell exhausted to the ground. The stranger, in an exhausted voice, asked the main character to finish him off. The protagonist slowly reached out his hand towards his opponent and grabbed him. Sue was holding the stranger by the throat. He decided that he wanted to wear him down first so that he could eventually use him and make him part of his strength. The main character carefully examined his lying opponent. He asked the guy how long had he been practicing this technique. The interlocutor replied that he had been practicing for a month intermittently. The main character demanded that the guy stick out his tongue. Sui wanted to look at the fighter's hand. The stranger said dissatisfiedly that he was a man, not a dog. The main character turned the guy's back and grabbed his hands. He said that he would unravel his aura. The fighter did not understand why Su was helping him. Su put his hands on the guy's back. He explained that his inflated aura had begun to destroy his body. The fighter was surprised because his teacher never told him about problems with the aura. I just asked my interlocutor how special VR glasses are so that you risk your life for them? The guy turned around angrily and said that he would never betray his teacher. The main character put the guy on the ground and began to rub his spine with his fist. The guy said that now there is little aura. It is impossible to find spiritual herbs. Therefore, many gave up on self-improvement. The main character pressed the guy on the back and demanded that he answer closer to the point. The interlocutor said that the teacher suddenly appeared. He said that for the warriors of Aura, there is still a new world where they can live. In such a place, an inexhaustible supply of herbs and jade is available. Su put his hands on the guy's back. He thought to himself that the Aura warriors were a powerful organization. The stranger told the main character that the new world hides the technique of eternal reincarnation. The main character asked his interlocutor, "What does all this have to do with VR glasses?" The guy replied that the glasses were completely useless. The fighter explained that the key to the new world is in the fantasy game. The only way to find this key is with special VR glasses. The main character told the guy to get up and check if anything in his body hurts. The fighter said joyfully that he was not in pain at all. The main character told his interlocutor that new qualities had awakened in him. Su demanded that the fighter stop chasing the sisters and leave. The guy invited the main character to work together. He said that together they could defeat many Aura warriors. Su refused. The main character explained to the fighter that he perfectly understands that he wants to lure him to his teacher. Su explained to his interlocutor that he was alive only because he had not harmed anyone yet. The main character grabbed the guy by the clothes. He wanted to threaten him. Su sternly told the guy that at the last moment, he would only see a flash of an aura. The interlocutor with a smile told the main character that he was very handsome. "This evening, I was sitting in my dorm room." He received a message. The main character read the message. He realized that while he was working, his friends went to play. He thought to himself that he must study in order to benefit the world in the future. He has no time for games. The main character, after a long pause, put on virtual reality glasses. He prepared to enter the game. The game has started. The system reported that character identification and generation was completed. The main character then found himself inside a virtual fantasy game. Su saw an absolutely unrealistic computer world around him. The guy was surprised and amazed. He couldn't believe that this was a fantasy game. Su stood inside the virtual world. He had a huge battle sword hanging on his back. Suddenly, some kind of predator appeared in the thicket and looked at the man with a luminous gaze. A wild predator with burning eyes stood and looked at the man very angrily. The main character did not even know that there was a wild boar standing behind him. The guy said that the smell of grass and branches seemed real to him. The boar accelerated and with a wild roar rushed with all its might to attack the man. The predator was rushing towards the man at full speed. The main character at this time was surprised because the game still had not teleported newcomers to the village. Su grabbed his sword with his hand. He noticed the predator in time and prepared to fight back. The main character very quickly and with a sharp movement of the sword hit the running predator. The boar was fatally struck by a blow from the sword. His lifeless body remained on earth. Su sternly told the dead predator that he was making a lot of noise and that's why he noticed him. Suddenly, the main character heard some suspicious noise from the side. There was a huge herd of very vicious predators around the guy. He told himself that he was wrong. He looked at the predators with a calm look. He prepared to fight against them. The main character with his sword was able to successfully kill all the wild boars. A participant in the game noticed a magical monkey with a banana in front of her. The girl approached the monkey and hit it with all her strength with her weapon. The animal was mortally wounded. The monkey's life indicator was completely reset. After a successful hunt, the girl ran away through the forest. The monkey fell to the ground. Yiren was holding her warbow in her hands. She completed her combat mission. Izhan told her sister that the case about the glasses had been completely transferred to Detective Vanu. Yiran replied that the detective had previously said that he would send all his subordinates to search. The little sister was unhappy. She didn't understand, is it really so important to send all the employees? The girl ran. She told her little sister to focus on the monsters. Izhan waved her small axe and told her sister that she was very strong. Izhan, with great excitement, asked her sister what happened. The girl noticed in front of her a huge number of bodies of dead boars. "Little sister," I asked my interlocutor, "why are there so many corpses of wild boars? Was there really some kind of event?" Yuran thoughtfully replied that she didn't think so. The girl examined the bodies of the boars. She realized that the predators were killed with one blow. The girl ran to the side along with her sister around the game location. The system informed the participants that all players with level 10 could participate in the game event. Izhan told her sister that she also wants to participate, but she is only level 9. The girl answered her sister that she might succeed another time. The participant explained that she would first try her luck at the event and then she and her sister would share everything. Yuran thought excitedly to herself that she could find the player who killed the boars. Inside the abandoned temple were the bodies of dead soldiers. The guy fearfully examined the bodies of the dead soldiers. They were scattered everywhere throughout the building. The player was very scared. The sword in his hands trembled. He could not understand what kind of game this was. Suddenly, the guy saw a huge warrior in front of him. He was scared. A huge warrior struck the guy with a blow from above. He did not have time to defend himself. The player's life indicator after the hit dropped completely to 0. The warrior stood and watched as the image of his opponent on the floor disappeared in front of him. The girl hid around the corner. She thought to herself in fear that she wanted to find a boar killer in this place. But she doesn't understand what's going on now. Yuran thought to herself that regeneration is very slow in this place. She even had to heal the scratch for a long time. The girl activated far-sightedness. She specifically looked at the warrior to see his damage level. Yuran examined the figure of the unfamiliar warrior. She wanted to study it in detail. The system informed the girl that she was denied access. She noticed that the stranger had reached level 35 in the game. She now understood why recovery was so slow. The girl took a closer look and noticed that the player in the cloak had suddenly disappeared. Suddenly, Yuran saw the fighter suddenly teleport and appear in front of her. Yuran decided to jump back sharply. She realized that the stranger had found her. The girl was scared and covered herself with her hands. She shouted to the warrior not to come near her. Suddenly, someone else appeared from the side in front of the girl and waved his sword. Su stood with the sword in front of Su. He explained to the girl that he had been looking for this place for a very long time because the map was large. The main character fights off a stranger. The girl shouted to her friend that the opponent's level was 20 units higher than theirs. Sui asked my friend how strong their opponent is. The girl dodged the blow and shouted to the guy that she hoped for his help. Sui accelerated with his sword. The main character wanted to quickly hit the stranger with his sword. The knight did not have time to hook the guy with his sword. Su jumped over him from above. The main character cheerfully shouted to his opponent that his sword movements were just like his friend's. Su told himself that his opponent was using the same technique as his friend. The main character jumped on top and cut his opponent with his sword with all his might. Su told himself that usually the opponent does not like to hide his face. He finished off his opponent with a powerful blow. The warrior's health indicator dropped to 0. The stranger was finally killed. The main character angrily told his opponent that his guts had been ripped open and no one knew about him except his relatives. The main character raised his sword. He decided to hit his opponent again. Su hit his opponent in the body with his blade with a very large swing. The main character swung and once again cut his opponent with his sword. Su Ye looked at the defeated warrior and said that he was a bad imitator. The system informed the player that he had won the event. He reached level 30 in fantasy. Yuran was very amazed. She realized that the guy defeated the event boss and greatly increased his level. The system informed the main character that he was receiving a reward in the form of a random gift. The main character decided to open and check what he received as a random gift. Su decided to try open his reward. He received the Dragon Slayer sword. The main character looked into the system window and studied it carefully. He couldn't understand what he got. The guy saw in front of him a parchment with a pattern. He realized that he was seeing a drawing of a Hairan. Su Ye was convinced that he had seen what the guy had told him about before. The main character realized with excitement that there was definitely a new world inside the fantasy. Near the police office, a subordinate reported information to his superior. The employee informed the manager that the special group personnel were in position. Van, without turning around, said that it would not be easy for all of them. The guy asked the boss with excitement, "Could the kidnapper be in cahoots with Detachment K?" Van looked seriously at his interlocutor and said that it was time to destroy this gang. The main character ordered food from a street vendor. He asked for more heat and acidity. The man asked the guy, "Did he really get a girlfriend in the last 6 months?" Su answered the seller that he had no time for that. Unexpectedly, the main character became worried. He heard a suspicious smell around him. Su couldn't understand where jade could come from in a city with a lack of aura. The man was surprised to notice how the main character turned around and prepared to leave. The seller shouted after the guy with displeasure that he couldn't even wait for food. Su answered the man as he walked, asking him to give food to someone. The main character ran down the street. He walked in the direction of the jade scent. Su stood near the entrance to the public toilet. He decided to go inside there. The main character saw with surprise a greenish stone. He realized that this was spiritual jade. Su Yi knew that spiritual jade was formed by absorbing the spiritual aura of baptism over a long period of time. The stone helps warriors to strengthen their aura. It is very rare. The main character held a stone in his hand. He decided that he would help him get closer to his goal. Su Yi realized that there was someone next to him. He shouted to the stranger to come out. Van left the toilet stall. He told the guy that no one can resist the temptation of jade. The policeman told the interlocutor that he had underestimated him. The man asked the guy if he had stolen glasses from the mentioned conservatory. The policeman told the main character that all this would not work for him. Several fighters appeared to attack Su. The strangers accelerated and ran towards the main character. He looked to the side with a very attentive and sharp glance. He prepared to fight back. The fighters had almost reached the target. The guy decided to teleport. Su found himself behind the attackers. He calmly told them that they were bothering him. The attackers fell to the floor. The main character turned to the man. The main character asked the man cheerfully why he was standing aside. Su asked the policeman, "Is he really as weak as his subordinates?" Van sternly asked the guy where his leader and glasses were. The policeman swung his hand and rushed to attack. He said, dissatisfied to the main character, that he was not even 30 years old. The main character put up a defense in front of himself. After Van's attack, fragments scattered around. The man was very surprised. He couldn't understand how the guy could resist him so well. Su held the policeman's hand. He clarified, which leader was he talking about? The main character pulled his opponent's hand towards himself. He reminded the policeman of his manner of asking questions. Van was scared. He realized that now the guy would throw him to the ground with a flourish. The main character threw a policeman to the floor with a very powerful blow. The main character activated a magic skill. He prepared to finish off his opponent with a blow with his fingers. The man was very scared. He realized that he had behaved very carelessly. Su Ye delivered several powerful blows to the man's body at various points on his body. Van opened his eyes in fear. He realized that the protagonist had opened acupuncture points on his body. The main character explained to the policeman that his veins were clogged. That's why his aura didn't flow. Su Ye told the lying policeman that after opening the acupuncture points, he would move to the next level. Van couldn't understand why the guy was helping him. He still thought that the main character worked in Detachment K. The policeman carefully examined the guy and remembered that he had not seen the file on him. Van decided to try to make the main character an ally. The policeman told the guy that he did not belong to Squad K. He demanded that the main character follow him to the detective bureau. Su calmly asked the man what would happen if he refused his offer. The main character was silent. The policeman looked back at him angrily. The man told the guy that he would force him to go with him. If someone else gets hurt, it will be his own business. Van waved his hand. He prepared to immediately attack his opponent. The guy looked at the policeman carefully. He noticed that the man's aura had become stronger. Su stood absolutely calmly and watched as his opponent attacked him. He realized that the man had become a better person. The main character deftly dodged the attack. He swung with all his strength and hit his opponent with his hands. After a strong blow, the van flew to the side and flew through the doors into the cabin. The policeman sat unconscious on the toilet. The main character noticed that the aura flows smoothly inside the man. It is released naturally. Su decided to himself that his treatment had worked as it should. The main character threw a stone in front of him. He decided to himself that he would take the jade as payment. Su left the building and stood on the street. He thought about the stone he had received. The guy was surprised that the policeman used jade as bait for the glasses thief. The guy decided to himself that the glasses were just a cover. The real clues are in the game. The main character remembered the parchment with a pattern that had fallen out earlier in the game. Su remembered that earlier the guy also mentioned that there was information about the new world in the game. The main character decided that people have the same goal as him. Su-yi understood that the others wanted to receive information about the technique of eternal reincarnation. The man came to his senses. He couldn't understand how he lost consciousness and why everything went wrong. One of the subordinates told the detective that the government had forbidden him to use the bathtub. The policeman replied to his subordinates that aura was first used by the spectacle thief. Van knew that his strength had increased 3 to 4 times, but this was not enough for him. He could not understand who his opponent was. Inside the fantasy game in the Grape Cave, the guy met his teacher. The guy told his teacher that he had not been able to find Maozi for several days. The woman told her interlocutor not to worry. Her people have already located the right person. The subordinate asked his interlocutor in fear what kind of punishment he would receive. The woman told the guy that he was part of her family and she couldn't punish him. The student thanked the teacher. The student turned around and walked away. The woman silently looked after him. The teacher said in a sly voice that testing on animals had already begun. The woman turned to someone next to her. She said that after they caught Maozi, they would start testing him. The teacher asked the man if the torture was over. The warrior held the young guy by the head. He told the woman that he did everything as she told him. Teacher asked the victim how things were going. The guy whispered an apology to the teacher. The woman swung her hand very sharply and finished off the guy with a powerful blow. The teacher said that the young warrior was useless meat. The man asked his interlocutor how they should proceed now. The teacher calmly explained to the interlocutor that they should leave everything as it is. The woman told the man that they should get the parchment that fell out of the event. It contains an important clue. The main character looked at his friends. The guys in VR glasses were completely absorbed in the game process. Su-yi realized that each participant in the game accumulates aura with the help of breathing techniques. The main character activated the jade. He decided to use the opportunity to improve his Heoran. The stone glowed. Su decided to take the jade he found to the next level. The main character felt important changes within himself. He decided to move on to the most important part. Sui felt as if he was in a huge library, and yellow lightning descended on him from above. The main character opened a drawer in the table. It contained parchment and a green stone. I thought about it. He couldn't understand where the heron pattern even appeared in the game. The main character was surprised to notice how the pattern on the parchment glowed brightly. Su looked in front of him in surprise. He couldn't understand what was happening. The main character saw in front of him a huge virtual map of the area. The system reported that fantasy is a forest secret kingdom. The guy couldn't understand how part of the map could have ended up in his memory palace. He didn't remember seeing the card in the game. The main character decided to himself that someone was spying on him and decided to transfer him to some place on the map. Su picked up a stone. He decided to follow the wishes of his pursuer. This should have helped figure something out. The guy seemed inside a fantasy game. He was in the northern forest. Su remembered a message that said that the secret kingdom could be found using a hidden map. The main character abruptly cut down a tree with a sword. 2 frightened warriors were hiding nearby. In another place, the main character cut down half of the stone. There were 2 players below. The main character told all the spies around him to get out. The guy asked the boss what they should do after they were discovered. The boss replied that everything was fine. The boss told his subordinates that there was one guy in front of them and they could just kill him. The main character shouted to his opponents to attack. He activated the fire elemental skill. Flames appeared around. Su Ye swung his sword and shouted to his opponents to attack. He thought to himself that this was really dangerous. Bright flames blazed and raged around. It burned everything around. The main character stood and looked at the fire in front of him. He decided that all his rivals were dead. The boss appeared with a huge club. He said dissatisfiedly that he always had to do everything himself. The boss demanded that the main character give him the parchment. Su was surprised that his rival was also hunting for the parchment. The main character told his opponent that he was not in the mood today. He pointed his sword at him. Sui cut the boss with his sword. He said that it is very inhumane to use people as bombs. The main character stood up and looked at the body of his lying opponent. He decided that there was someone else nearby. Su looked to the side into the thicket of the forest. He called out to his invisible rival. The main character shouted to his opponent to come down to him. The woman thought dissatisfied to herself that it turned out to be very difficult for her to cope with the main character. The girl noticed that it was as if someone had called her. She was unhappy and did not know what they wanted from her. The teacher noticed how someone called her from an unknown number. The woman from the tree shouted to the amazed warrior, "Not to lie down! Tongues of fire appeared around the body of the killed warrior. They sparkled brightly. Su turned to the side with great excitement. He noticed in front of him that the warrior was beginning to recover. The main character saw a huge fiery fighter in front of him. He decided it was a new skill. The burning fighter extended his hand to attack the guy. Su prepared to defend himself. The main character grabbed the sword to finish off his opponent. Su swung his sword. With a deft movement, he cut off the head of the burning fighter. The main character waved his sword in the air several more times. There were flames all around. Su saw the burning parts of a destroyed fighter flying in the air in front of him. The protagonist realized that he had just fought a very convincing fake. Su decided that his enemies had distracted him in order to escape at that time. The main character could not understand who shot the arrow at him to help him. The guy read the message from Yiren Baichu. The girl wrote to him that she no longer owed him. The girl stood in the distance with a bow in her hand. She was looking in the direction of the main character. Yiran lowered her bow. She told herself that this should be enough. The girl thought to herself. She couldn't understand why she cared about the guy. Yiran examined the main character from afar with great attention. The girl thought to herself that ordinary players should not know about the importance of the parchment. Yiran noted to herself that the group of attacking fighters was well organized. She decided that the guy was attacked by a detachment. The girl happily decided to tell Detective Van everything about herself. Yiran opened the system window. She decided to contact her commander. The girl told the commander that the guy had just been attacked by a group of players. The commander answered the girl that they were already watching her. The manager told the interlocutor that they already had another important reason. The man told the girl that they had found the man who stole the glasses. The leader told the girl that they were starting to act. He reminded her of safety. Yiran was delighted. She realized to herself that her efforts were not in vain. On the territory of an abandoned warehouse, a subordinate was communicating with his boss. The guy irritably threw his glasses on the floor. He asked displeasedly, "What kind of bastard was this?" The girl told her subordinate to forget about the guy since they had a new order. The boss told the guy that the customers would hand them over to detectives if they didn't find new information. The guy was very unhappy. He asked what they wanted from them this time. The manager replied to the sly subordinate that now this would be information of a higher level. A subordinate asked his boss, "Are we talking about national espionage?" At this time, a guy with documents entered the room. The guest asked very fearfully about national espionage. The fighter began to walk in the direction of the guy. He answered fearfully that he said everything by accident. The guest was informed by his interlocutor that the task of the detective bureau was completed. The woman grabbed the guy's face with her hand and forced him to open his mouth. The boss was holding a red ball in her hands. She wanted to feed it to the guy. The woman sternly told her interlocutor that the most obedient is a dead child. The boss forced the guy to swallow a poisonous red ball. Poisoning began inside the guy. The woman held her hand to his mouth with all her strength. The main character read a message from a girl on the phone. She wrote to him that she no longer owed him anything. The guy was surprised. He decided that Baichu was truly a special girl. The main character remembered that the bruise on his girlfriend's body was serious. When he treated her, she did not make a single sound. A stranger approached the guy from behind. He told him to stay put. The policeman showed his ID and told the guy that he was detained in connection with theft. The main character thought dissatisfied to himself that the detective team had found him after all. The officer told the guy as he walked to continue to follow him. The main character noted with surprise that they were heading to the school cafeteria. Policeman walked up to the wall. He told the guy to follow him. The policeman pressed an invisible button in the wall. Su was surprised that there was a secret base in this building. The main character went down to the basement, accompanied by his companion. The policeman told the guy that they had arrived. They approached huge metal doors. The main character decided to himself that the police should have important information, taking into account all precautions. Su went into the next room and saw a huge number of girls drawn. The guy was surprised. He couldn't understand why there were figures and images of girls at the police station. He looked around in surprise. He decided that what he saw was a modern geek room. The main character noticed the chief of police at the table. He said in a cheerful voice that he was the thief of the glasses. Wang Hao told the main character that he was the chief detective and offered to talk. The guy tried to justify himself. He said he didn't know anything about glasses. The man answered his interlocutor so that he would not even try to deny. Wang Hao walked to the door and pressed the button. He told the main character that he would show him something interesting. The main character noticed how young guys were training in the gym. He decided that this was a training ground. I was surprised to see how his neighbors in the student dormitory were training in the gym. Van explained to the guests that they find the talents they need in the fantasy game. All this is done thanks to VR glasses. The main character recalled the behavior of his friends. He said he wasn't sure exactly how it all worked. Sue reported that he saw his roommates performing breathing techniques in the game. Practicing breathing techniques allowed the guys to strengthen their aura. They received power that was previously inaccessible to them. The main character asked the surprised man if he was right in his words. Wands remembered the word of the girl Yiran Baichu that the main character is an amazing person. Out loud, he invited the guy to the next stage. The man handed the guy a phone. The main character decided to take him and talk. I was so worried. He picked up the phone and didn't know who his interlocutor would be. An unfamiliar voice told the main character that he had been following him for a long time. I soon realized that a little girl was talking to him. The interlocutor asked the guy for help. Sue asked what he would get in return. The girl told the main character that she would show him where the secret kingdom was. In return, she asked the guy to help catch the squad. Sue, without much hesitation, told his interlocutor that he agreed to her terms. In an abandoned warehouse, guys beat up a fighter. One of them said that the prisoner would need to be taken to the teacher later. The fighters continued to beat the guy. He could not defend himself from them. One of the fighters swung before the blow. He said that they would teach the prisoner a lesson and then hand him over. The main character appeared. He looked at the beaten guy with great surprise. Sue looked at the fighters and slyly told them that they had finally met. The prisoner looked at the main character in surprise. He decided that his brother had come to help him. The main character scattered the fighters to all sides with powerful blows. He asked his friend who it was. The guy said in fear that the teacher had sent fighters against him. He added that we need to find Xiao now. The main character was surprised. The guy ran up the stairs and shouted that he would definitely find Xiao. Sue was surprised. He did not understand what he was doing and who his friend was looking for. The guy came to the door. He shouted at Xiao that he would come in now. The guy opened the door and walked in. He saw something very scary and froze in place. A young guy was sitting on the floor. He was pale and showed no signs of life. A friend ran up to the unconscious guy Xiao and asked in fear what they did to him. The main character looked at the guy's body. He realized that he had first been pumped with aura and medications. Then the energy was completely drained from the victim. I soon realized that the people from Detachment K were to blame for the guy's death. The guy looked at Xiao with a frightened look and asked, what should he do? He remembered about the pills. The young man took out the teacher's box of pills. He prepared to receive them. The guy opened a box of pills. He began to pour them into his hand. The main character looked at his friend with displeasure. He realized that he was an idiot. With a very sharp movement, he grabbed his friend's hand. He didn't want him to take pills now. Sue told the guy very emotionally that he would now explain to him who was to blame for everything. The main character added that the teacher is to blame for everything. Sue explained to his persistently frightened friend that the teacher was using him. The pills the boys received turned out to be poison. That's why Xiao died. The main character explained to his interlocutor that they are all lab rats of their teacher. The guy was scared. He dropped the box of pills and fell to his knees. The young man was very much amazed. He couldn't believe that the teacher considered him, along with the other guys, just rats. The main character thought to herself in surprise and displeasure that the guys behaved like children. Sue carefully examined the pale body and realized that there was almost no spiritual energy left in the guy, but he still remained alive. The main character explained to his friend that Xiao could still be saved. The guy was surprised that his brother could still be saved. Suye smiled at his interlocutor and explained to him that he was studying Chinese medicine. The main character began to carry out special magical manipulations. A virtual library with a large number of books has appeared around it. The main character activated a search among all his accumulated knowledge. The guy needed dragon bones, a marrow flower, and the herb of hope. The main character served his hands together. He decided to try to create a tablet. He was surprised to see a round pill hovering in front of him. The guy extended his hand to take the pill and understand who the main character is and why he is so good at medicine. I gave my friend a pill. The guy put the red pill into the unconscious Xiao's mouth. Life began to play in the guy's body. A glow appeared around him. The skin acquired a yellowish tint. Xiao Wu came to his senses. He asked his brother what he was doing here. The guy rushed to his revived brother. He hugged him very joyfully. The main character explained to his friend that his brother was still very weak. He needs to rest. So I asked my interlocutor strictly what was going on in Detachment K and where was their teacher. The guy obediently answered his interlocutor that he would tell him everything. He wanted to tell where the teacher is. Suddenly, the front doors opened and a policeman appeared. He told the boys that following them had paid off. The main character was surprised. He couldn't understand what Wang Hao had done here. The policeman demanded that the guy give him information about the K detachment. In return, he promised to provide medical services for his brother. Police and medical vehicles arrived at the building. The doctors carried Xiaowu on a stretcher. The main character shouted to the leaving guy to wait. He told his interlocutor not to do anything stupid anymore for the sake of his brother. The guy sadly answered the main character that he would remember his words. The main character thought to himself that with the help of the guy he found an abandoned base and a member of Squad K. Sue asked the policeman how seriously he took Squad K. Van answered the guy that the squad members were conducting experiments on people. The policeman said that other reasons for the interest in the squad include immortality. Van told the guy that the promised rewards had already been sent to his home. The main character realized that the detective did not want to give him a lot of information. The guy decided that he himself should go to the secret kingdom and find out everything himself. Sui moved inside the game. He found himself in an abandoned game location. The main character entered the cave. He decided that he was in the right place. The main character realized that the entrance to the secret kingdom was inside the cave. It was not so easy to find. Sue went inside the cave and found a huge Haran pattern in one of the rooms. The guy received a system message. He analyzed it carefully. The main character received a new transformation. He had to tame some beast nearby. A huge predator with glowing eyes appeared from the side. Sui realized that he would have to fight back. Suye stretched out his hand to grab his sword. He looked at the wolf carefully. A long-tailed wolf approached the man. He prepared to attack the guy. The predator accelerated and ran at full speed towards the guy. Su swung his sword with all his might. The predator jumped sharply to the side. After being attacked by a man, the wolf fell to the ground and remained motionless. The main character was surprised to notice that the predator's health indicator had not decreased. Su looked to the side with excitement. He did not know how to tame the animal. The wolf stood and looked at the man with an evil gaze. He prepared to attack again, swung his sword in all directions. He decided to try to finish off the predator as quickly as possible. The main character punched through the concrete floor with powerful blows and fell into the lower room. Su stood and looked at the predator in front of him. He prepared to fight back. The wolf stood still and growled very angrily. He studied the man with great attention. The predator grabbed its head with both paws. He was looking in the direction of the main character. The main character was surprised. He could not understand what kind of sound he heard next to him. Sui thought and excitedly realized that the wolf was being controlled by something from the outside. The wolf jumped up sharply. The main character prepared to fight off the predator. Sei Wu stood still and prepared to fight back with his sword. The predator flew around him at great speed. The guy realized with great excitement that the wolf around him was moving very quickly. The main character swung his blade to hit the predator that flew up to him. I suddenly noticed some kind of glowing bright hieroglyph on the wolf's head. The main character realized that he had noticed a rune already familiar to him on the wolf's head. The predator stood nearby and looked angrily at the man. Su noticed how demonic green clouds flew from the wolf in his direction. The guy realized that he was being attacked by a mask on the wolf's head. He needed to find a way to destroy it. The main character hit the ground with his sword with all his might. He decided to attack the predator. Su pulled away very sharply. He decided to finish off the wolf as quickly as possible. The main character extended his hand to quickly grab the dangerous predator. With a very powerful, deft movement, he grabbed the mask on the wolf's head. The main character tore off the mask from the predator. He said that controlling others is very bad. Traces of blood appeared from under the torn mask. The wolf still had a wound on his head. He quickly jumped to the side. In his hands was a mask from the head of a predator. The main character squeezed the mask with all his strength in order to destroy it. From the strong pressure, the mask in the guy's hand shattered into pieces. The wolf was completely freed from other people's control. The predator screamed loudly. He could no longer move to the sides and could not see anything. The wolf fell to the ground. He no longer had the strength to attack the man. After some time, the predator came to his senses and rose to his feet. Su looked carefully at the transformed beast. The wolf seemed very beautiful to him. The guy put his hand on the head of the predator, and he liked how the wolf really looked. The system informed the owner that he had tamed the long-tailed wolf. Su commanded the predator to lie on the ground. The main character decided to pet the animal. He extended his hands to him. Su walked around the wolf and stroked him very joyfully. He felt great. The guy noticed something happened to the wolf. A glow appeared around his body. The main character looked ahead excitedly. He didn't understand what was happening. Su saw a little girl with blonde hair appear in front of him instead of a predator. After being stroked by the guy, the wolf turned into a harmless child. Su looked at the girl in front of him with great excitement. He didn't understand what had happened. The main character was scared because he saw a little girl next to him. I immediately realized that if anyone had seen him here, the police would have taken him away very soon. The main character decided to take off his outerwear. He realized that he could not leave the girl like this. Su put his outerwear on the surprised baby. He decided it would be better this way. The girl was silent. She looked down at the ground in front of her thoughtfully. The baby ran to the side. Main character asked her, with excitement, "Where is she going?" The girl ran up to the wall and looked at her silently. A surprised guy stood nearby. The baby put her palm to the wall. A bright glow appeared around. The main character was surprised to notice how a huge luminous pattern appeared on the wall. I soon realized that the writing on the wall said about the kingdom of the Ark people. It is located in the north of the Arowana. This people has a white body and hair. The main character realized that the girl was a divine beast of the Ark people. Su looked at the magical inscriptions. He realized that there was some connection between the Hauran and the Ark people. The main character was sitting on the ground next to a little girl. He decided that only the Ark people could give him the answers he needed. The guy realized that Detective Wang would not tell him anything. He also decided that he would not be able to obtain any necessary information from Maozi. The main character realized that the game developers or the Baichu family could help him. Su Ye realized that he couldn't just meet the noble Baichu family. The main character opened a system window. He decided to write to the girl inside the fantasy game. Two girls were racing along the road in a car at that time. They communicated with each other. Yuran told her companion Jiang Shan that she shouldn't have accompanied her with her busy schedule. The girl was sitting on the chair opposite. She answered her interlocutor that she was very kind. Jiang said that the girl almost died when she tried to bring out Detachment K. She added that 2 jades were worth nothing. Jiang Shan was the senior inspector of the eastern region. The inspector told her interlocutor that she could give her a bunch more jades. Yuran answered her interlocutor that she did not need the stone and she had not yet become a master of aura. Jiang asked with great interest, "Does Baichu really want to become an aura warrior?" The inspector sat closer to the girl. She really wanted to help her. Jiang grabbed her friend into her arms. She said that she would help her practice in order to achieve results faster. The inspector continued to squeeze the girl in the back seat. Jiang explained that she appreciates both sisters. Suddenly, there was a very strong explosion. The car drifted to the side. Due to a powerful explosion on the road, part of the body was torn off from the car. A guy with a weapon approached from the side. He was heading towards the burnt-out car. The stranger carefully examined the burnt vehicle. He decided to see who remained alive inside. The guy grabbed the handle of the side door in the car to open it. The fighter opened the door and shouted for the Baichu girl to quickly come out. The guy was surprised to notice how empty the inside of the burnt car was. Jiang stood nearby. She shouted loudly to the guy that he was looking in the wrong place. The inspector carried the girl in his arms. She shouted to the attacker that today she was with the Baichu. The guy was very unhappy. He decided to grab the Yuran girl himself. The attacker sped up and demanded that Jiang give him her little sister. One of the fighters was completely bound by blue lightning and could not move. Jiang smiled cheerfully at the attacker and told them to surrender to the detective. The stranger angrily walked towards the girl. He told her that he didn't know who she was. The fighter shouted very angrily for Jiang to mind her own business. He prepared to attack. Yiren called her friend Jiang Shan in a very frightened voice. The inspector glanced slyly at the attacker. She prepared to defend herself from him. The fighter was rushing towards the girl at full speed. She attacked his body with blue lightning. The guy realized that he could not move forward any further. His body seemed to be frozen. Bluish lightning bolts protruded from the fighter's body. They completely shackled him. Baichi was very surprised. She realized that the inspector had hit her opponent with one movement. The inspector, with a smile, demanded the guy to answer her questions. She asked, "Why does he need Yiran Baichu?" The guy realized that he was now shackled by spiritual weaving. He could not understand where the girl came from. The attacker angrily decided that he would not surrender alive to the inspector. He prepared to swallow the blue pill. At this time, a blue thread flew by. She pulled the stone out of the guy's mouth. The pill returned to the inspector's hand after the flight. She held it in her hand. Zhang asked the guy, did he really want to use pills to increase weapons? The attacker angrily shouted to the surprised inspector that she was very stupid. The guy explained that soul weaving can only bind aura. For this reason, he simply will not use it. The attacker swung. He shouted to the girl that he would deal with her with a simple blow. The inspector looked ahead cheerfully. She was amused by the guy's words. The girl swung and kicked the attacker in the groin with all her might. The guy screamed after the blow. He felt very strong pain in his body. The attacker fell to the ground. After that, Yuran Baichi approached him from the side. Yuran said with surprise that such a technique even works on aura warriors. The inspector looked at the guy cheerfully and said that he had screwed up. The police arrived, they tied up, and took the attacking guy into the car. Yuran said she was unhappy that Detachment K was already working openly. She asked her friend if the attackers were really looking for a passage. Zhang asked the girl which passage she was talking about. The inspector decided that the Baichu would have found out about everything someday anyway. She decided to tell everything now. Zhang said that fantasy is a projection of another world. It is called the world of mountains and seas. There are many spiritual resources in this place. A couple of years ago, the Spiritual Research Department took the initiative. Specially selected fantasy players were sent on the expedition. The inspector reported that they needed new forces to protect their borders. Lately, they have been suffering due to pressure from other countries. Jiang asked the girl, will she follow her? Yuran was silent in response. The inspector said with a smile that she still needed to sort out the mess. Baichu joyfully shouted to her friend that she was singing with her. She ran to the car. Yuran decided to herself that if she became as strong as Jiang Shan, then she would never be a burden again. The girl got into the car with her friend. She asked Jiang if she had forgotten something. The girl received a message inside the game. Someone wanted to meet her to practice shooting. Su Yi was inside the game. He was waiting for the girl and couldn't figure out where she was. There was a girl inside the Baichu mansion. The house was under reliable security. The fighters in suits near the entrance to the building looked carefully around. Yuran was in the bathroom. She decided to relax in the warm water herself. The girl realized that the main character decided that she was an unreliable person. She didn't know how she would look into her eyes in the future. Yuran heard a sharp noise from the side. She turned around in fear to see what had happened. My sister came out of the shower. She wrapped a white towel around her body. Yuran walked to the door and opened it very slowly. She felt fear. The girl came out and saw that a pot of flowers had fallen to the floor in the bedroom. The door to the balcony was open. She took a closer look and decided that the pot had fallen due to gusts of wind. Suddenly, the girl heard a suspicious noise from behind. She was scared. The main character grabbed the girl from behind. He put his hand over her mouth to stop her from screaming. Yuran suddenly freed her head and managed to bite the guy's finger with all her might. The girl broke away from the main character. The guy was scared from surprise. Baichu looked at the guy with displeasure and asked who he was. The girl realized that she saw Dr. Su in front of her. The main character cheerfully told his interlocutor that they had not seen each other for a long time. The girl very displeasedly asked the guy why he came to her. Su didn't know what to answer. The main character understood that he could not tell the girl that he came because she missed the meeting in the game. Yuran threatened the guy that if he didn't say anything, she would call the police. The main character shouted to his interlocutor to wait a minute. Baichu was holding the phone in her hands. The guy explained to the girl that he wanted to tell her something. The guy carefully took the phone from the girl's hands. He told her that he wanted to tell her a secret. The main character told the girl that her father had secretly contacted teacher Lee. He wants to discuss the treatment of a dangerous disease. The girl was scared because her father was sick. Su Yi explained to his interlocutor that No's father was secretly looking for treatment so as not to bother her. The girl said that she understands why her father has been looking bad lately. Su went up to his sister and hung his jacket on her shoulders. He told her that he was worried about her father. Yuran explained to her interlocutor that she believed him and she trusted Professor Lee. The main character thanked the girl for believing him. The guy thought to himself that he urgently needed information about Haoran. Su told his girlfriend that he got lost in her mansion. Yuran asked the guy if he wanted to find her father's room. The girl took the guy into the room. She said that this was her father's room. Yuran, with a very deft movement, used her finger to slam the entrance lock. The main character became worried. He turned around with excitement and looked at the girl. The girl shone a bright light from the lamp on her guest. Su didn't understand what the girl was doing. Yuran stood and held the lamp in her hands. She sternly told the guy that she recognized him by his jacket. The girl shouted to the main character that she saw him steal the glasses. The girl decided to hit the guy with a blow from the lamp. Sue dodged the blow. He told himself that he knew that everything would not go smoothly. The main character, with a quick and deft movement, grabbed the lamp and protected himself from the blow. He suddenly jerked the lamp towards him. The girl was still holding on to her in fear. The main character managed to grab the girl on the move so that she would not fall to the floor. Yuran slipped on a towel that was lying on the floor. The guy held her back. The main character demanded from the girl that she give him a minute of attention. He explained that he took the glasses, but he was on the side of the detectives. Sue let go of the girl from his arms. He advised her to dress warmly so as not to catch a cold. Suddenly, an Is-han appeared from the side. She screamed at the guy to stay away from her sister. The girl sped up from the street and decided to jump out the window into the room. Suddenly, the fabric tore and the baichu began to fall into the room with acceleration. The girl screamed in fear. The main hero could not understand where the Is-han came from here. Is-han fell from above on top of the main character and the girl next to him. It was with difficulty that he came to his senses. On top of him were two baichu sisters. The guy was lying on the floor and didn't have the strength to get up. His sisters were next to him. The girls looked at the main character with displeasure. They didn't like that the guy was in their room. The sisters swung their arms and decided to beat the guy. They shouted in displeasure that he was a pervert. The girls beat the main character and tied him up. He didn't have time to defend himself. As a result, the tied and beaten guy ended up hanging from above. He couldn't move. One of the girls swung her big paw and hit the tied-up guy. Izan screamed at the main character that he was a bad person. She continued to beat him. Yiran handed the phone to her sister and told her to look. The girl was very surprised when she looked at the information on her phone. Baichu told her sister that the detective would not lie to them. One of the girls told the frightened guy that she had checked his story. Is-han, with a stick in her hand, told the main character that they had misunderstood him. In a very calm voice, he answered his interlocutors that they had come to an understanding. The sister calmly told the hanging guy that she would untie him now. Is-han stopped. She suggested that her sister call the guards. Yiran excitedly told her interlocutor that it was their own fault. Is-han displeasedly shouted to her friend that even if the main character helps the detective, he is still an alien. The girl told her sister that she does not involve her in many things and does not introduce her to many people. She added that she was worried about her sister. Is-han answered her sister that after all the incidents, today she was attacked by a detachment of K. The girl told her sister that they were very far from each other. She was just watching Yuran from afar. The girl hugged her sister. She said that she was very afraid that she would never see her again. Yiran hugged the girl. She thought to herself that she was a bad sister. Main character looked at Yiran. He understood why he didn't wait for her. Sue told the surprised sisters that they had a very good relationship. The main character freed himself and stood on the floor on his feet in front of the girls. Sue told his surprised girlfriends that he would not burden them with untying the ropes. The girl ran up and grabbed a stick with a paw. She wanted to beat the guy again. Izan swung her hand and shouted to the main character that he was really dangerous. Yuran became worried and scared. She shouted at her sister to stop. The main character quickly dodged a downward blow from the stick. The girl missed. Sue stood in a bow and asked his girlfriend for an apology. The main character calmly explained to the surprised girls that he broke into their home because he did not meet Yiran in the game. Izan pointed her finger at the guy and said that it turns out he might feel guilty. The girl asked the guy how he knew that she would be online. Sue reminded the interlocutor that they had agreed to meet. The sister asked, "Did they really agree to meet during the day?" Izan pointed her hand at the guy in surprise and asked, "Is he really a Tae-soo-yi?" Izan pointed her hand at the guy and said that she did not believe that he was Tsu-yi. The guy answered the girls that they could check his ID number. Yuran seriously said that she believes that the guy is Tsu-ye. The sister reminded the girl that the main character broke into their house at night. The girl told the main character that she would not press charges against him. She also set one condition. Yuran demanded from the main character that he help her and her sister in training. Izhan told her sister that all this was very risky. She reminded me of other ways. The girl told her sister that they have time, but their mom and dad don't have time. Izhan agreed with her friend and said that they would do as she wanted. The main character realized with excitement that the girl wanted his help because of her parents. Su-yi extended his hand to the girl and said that he agreed to her proposal. The main character promised his interlocutors that he would do everything possible to help them. Su and his girlfriends came to the dance hall. They decided to train there. The guy was sitting with the girls in a yoga pose. The girl asked the guy if there were any results. The main character explained to the sisters that their aura was blocked. It will take a little time to open their acupuncture points. The girl explained to the main character that it was not their fault, but all because of their genetics. The main character suggested that the sisters use double cultivation. This will help revitalize a stagnant aura. Izan excitedly told her sister that she had read about double cultivation in a magazine. The girls imagined how they would sit next to the main character in an embrace. Su decided to himself that his girlfriends had misunderstood everything. Main character put his hand on the floor, glowing inscriptions appeared around. He told the girls that they had misunderstood dual cultivation. The sisters were amazed and surprised. They looked with admiration at the inscriptions on the floor. The main character and his sisters sat in a huge luminous circle on the floor. The main character explained to the girls that they were sitting in a circle to collect aura. When he presses on an acupuncture point, the other points around it will light up. Yuran said in surprise that she thought that the ancient aura circle had been lost long ago. 2 green stones were flying between the guy's hands. He told the girls that these jades should give a lot of aura. He explained that the process of opening locations would be difficult. The main character abruptly slammed his hands together. He shouted to the girls that they need to start. The main character warned his girlfriends that it would hurt and that they should hold on. The sisters screamed. The guy excitedly thought to himself that the absorption of the aura had become stronger than he expected. All he had to do was use his aura. Suddenly, there was a very bright glow. Su-yi shouted that he was starting to pour out energy. A very bright glow appeared from above. It headed towards the girl on the floor. In the room, particles of yellow energy were flying in the air above the people. The main character realized that his girlfriends now have the 9th rank. For them, this will be the maximum for now. Su looked at the lying girls. He decided to go and see their father's office. The main character turned around and decided to see what condition the sisters were in. Little sister were lying unconscious on the floor. They were very exhausted after the procedure. The main character found a secret entrance to the office. He went inside the room. The guy sat down at the table at the computer. There were several mannequins lying on the floor in front of him. The main character analyzed the information on the computer and found what he needed. He pressed a button on the panel. A hologram light appeared from the side of the panel. The main character took a closer look. Su saw a holographic image. He realized that the fantasy game is a link with another world called the world of mountains and seas. The main characters were surprised that he could exist in both worlds at the same time. He decided to find where the passage to another world was. I carefully studied the information on the computer. He realized that there was not a word there about the data he needed. The guy looked closely at the computer and noticed the logo of a detective agency. The main character remembered that Wang Hao's boss's name was Jiang Shan. This girl should know where the passage is. Su thought and decided to himself that he would have to meet with the senior inspector. The next morning, the sun shone into the girls' room. They woke up. Yuran opened her eyes. She realized that they were in the bedroom. She remembered that they were in the dance hall when Dr. Su moved them. The sister sat up on the bed and noticed how there was a note on the blanket in front of her. The girl realized that the guy had drawn a diagram of the aura collection circle for her. The main character wished the sisters to achieve success. The guy added that girls should not rush their fate. Yiren was delighted. She clutched the letter to herself with excitement. She thought about the guy. Little sister clearly remembered the name of the main character. Su was walking down the street at that time. Su met 2 students. One of them asked the main character, "Is he really up already?" The main character became worried. The student told a friend that he saw as if the main character was curled up on his bed and sleeping. Like dead, Su-yi remembered that last night he was not in his room. He wondered who could have slept in his place. The main character ran sharply to the side. He shouted to his friends that he forgot something in the room and would come to them later. Su-yi ran into the hostel at full speed. He was heading to his room. The main character climbed the ladder to his sleeping place. He didn't know who was in his bed. The guy grabbed the blanket. He could not understand who decided to sleep in his place. The main character tore off the blanket and saw a stranger on his bed. A girl with long white hair was curled up on the bed. Su said in fear that he saw a long-tailed wolf in front of him. The girl opened her eyes. She calmly looked at the guy in front of him. The amazed protagonist looked at the little girl on his bed. The baby screamed joyfully and threw herself from the bed on top of the guy. Out of surprise, the main character fell to the floor. The girl jumped on him. Sui gradually came to his senses. Lying on it was a little girl with long white hair. The main character asked the little girl how could she come here. He initially assumed she was an NPC. With horror, he heard friends approaching the door of his room. He became very worried. Students stood near the entrance. The main character could not understand why his friends returned. The guy took out his phone and looked at the time. He remembered that today is Sunday. The main character carried the girl around the room in fear. He wanted to hide it somewhere. The baby ran towards the door. The main character shouted to the girl not to go there. Friends opened the door to the room. They shouted to the main character that they had brought him breakfast. The friends looked up at the bed and noticed that someone was lying under the blanket. One of the students decided that their friend was feeling bad. The main character decided to escape with the girl. He moved to a parallel reality. Sue ended up in his virtual palace. A frightened baby was sitting in his arms. The main character explained to the surprised girl that they were inside his memory palace. Sue told the girl that they were inside his personal world. He asked his interlocutor to tell him how she got into this world. The baby was scared, she was silent, and did not know what to answer the man. The girl began to make various sounds in fear and wave her arms in all directions. The main character realized that the girl was a spiritual beast. She does not know human language. Sue took a book from the shelf. He decided to teach his interlocutor to speak human language. The main character was holding a book in his hands. He told the interlocutor that he would teach her the language. The girl nodded silently to the guy. Sui began to teach his girlfriend human speech. First, he told her about the alphabet. The girl was holding a book in her hands. She dutifully repeated all the letters she had learned. The main character explained to the girl that she was a wolf, not a fox. The little girl slowly said a word about revenge. Sui asked the girl if she wanted to take revenge on someone who put a mask on her. The baby screamed excitedly, "What she wants!" The main character decided to himself that the girl would help him get into the world of mountains and seas. Then he will not need to turn to Jiangshan for help. Sue showed the surprised girl the red pill. He asked her to sign a contract with him. In return, he will help her in her revenge. The main character promised the little girl that he would provide her with an aura in another world. He asked the girl to take him to her home. Sue explained to his interlocutor that he had set her only condition. "You won't have to pay anymore. The aura of the guy and the girl will unite." The little girl noticed something very frightening in front of her. She looked ahead in fear. The girl was lifted up. The main character was sitting on the floor in a meditative position. The girl was surprised. She saw that her friend was very young and did not understand where he got such strength from. The little girl looked at the guy in surprise. She noticed something interesting. The girl saw that the main character had a green stone hanging. She didn't understand where he got such a pendant. The baby came down from above towards the guy. She decided that this was destiny for her. The girl came close to the main character. The guy was surprised. The little girl told the guy that the contract had been concluded and called him the owner. Suyi was very amazed. The interlocutor several times called him her immortal master. The main character asked the girl in fear, how did she know that he was immortal? The little girl explained to the guy that she herself was immortal. She smelled the same smell from the owner. Sue suggested that the girl should rest in a memory palace from past traumas. The main character added that he needs to finish things in this world. After that, he went to the world of mountains and seas. The girl ran up to the owner and grabbed his hand. She wanted to tell him something important. The baby told the surprised protagonist that besides him, she felt another immortal. The guy called the girl by the name Cheng Huang. He fearfully asked if she knew exactly who the other immortal was. The girl explained to the guy that another immortal person is very secretive and strong. Cheng Huang disappeared into thin air. At parting, she told the guy to be careful. The main character, with a map in his hand, carefully made his way inside the detective bureau. Sui realized that the card from the girl did not let him down. Everything was going smoothly for him. At this time, Cheng Huang appeared from behind. She called the guy. Sue was surprised by surprise. The main character covered the girl's mouth. He said they might get caught. Cheng Huang shouted excitedly that if her master was caught, she would help save him. The guy asked his girlfriend to keep quiet. Suddenly, the bell rang and the red light flashed. Sui was very worried. The main character thought displeasedly to himself that they had been spotted inside the headquarters. Cheng Huang said excitedly to the main character that all this happened to her because of them. The girl noticed how two aura warriors were fighting among themselves in front. Jiang attacked her opponent with blue rays. She shouted to the girl not to think about entering the world of mountains and seas. The girl responded by attacking the inspector with a beam of energy. She shouted that Jiang would not stop her. Two beams of energy collided in the center of the hall. There was a very strong explosion. The main character looked at the girl in surprise. He couldn't believe that she was Wang Hao's boss. The guy saw a blue portal on his side. He realized that this is where Cheng Huang came from. The girl explained to her owner that he saw in front of him the entrance to the world of mountains and seas. Cheng Huang suggested that the guy rush into the portal while the girls fought among themselves. The girls continued to fight among themselves in the room. The main character was standing in the next room with the girl. Su Ye said excitedly that Jiang had reached the 9th rank. Her rival is also not far behind her. There aren't many young aura warriors in the world right now. Cheng Huang happily told the owner that she wanted to break through. The main character told the girl to return home. He assured her that everything would be fine with him. From a very strong blow, Zhang Shan was carried far to the side. She hit the wall. The main character carefully looked into the room. He was wondering who Zhang Shan's rival was. The rival came up with a fire in her hand and asked the inspector if she was all right. Suddenly, something pierced the girl's hand. It was as if blue lightning had pierced her. Jiang shouted angrily to her rival that she had enough strength to give her a fight. The inspector told the leader of the squad that she would not allow her to convey information about the world of mountains and seas. Inspector Zhang called her amazed rival by the name Luo Huan. The girl decided that she had had enough. She took out a small test tube. Luo Juan activated the liquid from the test tube into her body. She didn't want to leave her rival alive. After the injection, the girl's body began to transform. It increased dramatically in size. Jiang fearfully noticed how her rival extended a huge hand against her. The inspector repelled her rival's attack with the help of blue threads from her hands. Jiang thought to herself excitedly that her opponent was now close to rank 10. Luo Juan came close to the inspector and asked why she froze in place. The inspector noticed with horror how her rival extended her huge hand towards her. The main character ran up on time. He grabbed Luo Huan's hand sharply from the side. Su told the girl that he knew the smell of her drug. The medicine Xiao and Maozi had the same smell. The inspector displeasedly asked the main character how he found this place. Su looked seriously in front of him. He decided to attack the Luo Huan itself in front of him. The main character hit the girl with all his might. She flew to the side. The guy said that the old man was very bored, so he wants to ask the teacher something. The girl jumped to the side. She could not understand what had happened to her. Luo Juan looked at the guy angrily. She couldn't understand where he came from. The main character asked his interlocutor, "Where did she get the drug from?" The inspector angrily told the guy that he mistook her for a child. Su explained to his interlocutor that he was not lying to her. The girl decided that she had a high rank and the main character could not defeat her. Luo Juan activated her skills. Flying skulls appeared around her in a pink haze. The main character and his companion were scared. They stepped back a little. There was a very powerful explosion. He covered Su and the inspector next to him. The girl looked joyfully in front of her and said that it was all over. Luo Juan suddenly noticed some kind of enlightenment in front of her. She was unpleasantly surprised. The girl could not believe that her rivals were still alive. For her, it seemed impossible. The main character accelerated to immediately knock the girl off her feet with a powerful blow. Luo Juan was amazed. She couldn't understand when the guy managed to quickly get close to her. The main character with a smile told the girl that he did it for her. Luo Juan could not resist the powerful blow and flew far back. The girl fell to the ground unconscious after a very powerful blow. The main character suggested that the inspector forget about everything. Zhang explained to the guy that from that day on, he would be under her command. Inspector. I asked the guy what he did with his rival. She explained that she could no longer judge Luo Huan's rank. The main character explained that he blocked the techniques of Wu Luo Huan. Therefore, they can no longer be felt. Zhang was surprised that the guy was able to disable his skills with one blow. The girl went inside herself. She didn't like the guy's words that he blocked her techniques. The angry Luo Juan rushed at the guy to attack him in flight. The inspector launched her magic threads to tell her rival. Very quickly, the girl found herself completely tied up. She couldn't move. The main character and the inspector looked carefully at the bound Luo Huan. The inspector had blood on his face. She told the guy that she had learned the bondage method well. Jiang asked her interlocutor what country is behind them. The girl tried to break free but could not. The inspector explained to the prisoner what she knew about her situation. The inspector told the surprised girl that she wanted to give her son the best treatment, but he was taken hostage. Zhang told her interlocutor that they would help free her son and give him the best doctors. Luo Juan thought about it. She did not know what to answer the inspector to her proposal. At this time, a shell appeared from the side. He flew in the direction of the girl. Jiang was very scared. She realized that she and her boyfriend were in danger. The shell hit the wall, and after that, there was a very strong explosion. The main character could not understand how strangers entered this place. Jiang explained that there had been sabotage. The inspector asked the girl strictly, why was she looking for a passage? The main character thought dissatisfied to himself that he had missed the moment. He realized that the inspector was not so easy to deceive. The tied-up girl tried to free herself. She began to whine displeasedly. Luojuan angrily screamed in a dissatisfied voice that she was scared. The main character said that the girl was suffering from the side effects of the drug. The guy remembered the syringe at Luo Huan. He realized that the attackers had decided to kill two birds with one stone. The main character realized that the passage was destroyed along with the drug. He was wondering who the unexpected guest was. Su stood near the destroyed wall. He didn't know what to do now. The sisters stood on the street. Yizhan asked the girl, how long will they have to wait for the pervert? Yuran answered his girlfriend that they don't have Dr. Su's number. The girl was dissatisfied and said that the main character may be a good person, but he is a pervert. Yuran greeted the main character. Su asked the girl why she was here. Yuran handed the guy the package and said that it was a thank you for the training. The main character saw cookies inside the package. The box was beautifully decorated. Yizhan explained to the guy that her sister made the cookies. She demanded that the main character not give treats to others. Suye smiled at the girl and said that he would definitely try the cookies. He thanked Miss Baichu. The girl looked sadly to the side. She was thinking about something of her own. The inspector appeared. She said in a happy voice that the guy was helping others practice. The main character and his friends were surprised. They didn't expect Jiang to appear here. The inspector invited the interlocutors to go together to the world of mountains and seas. The girl asked the inspector what other way could there be to get into the world of mountains and seas. Jiang explained to her interlocutors that she would tell them everything much later. The inspector said that the North China region approved the initiative to select 5 candidates, choose 2 sisters and the main character. The girl said joyfully that they could now go to another world together. Yuran asked if more candidates had been nominated. The inspector answered the interlocutors that everything was correct. The inspector explained to the girls that there are still certain conditions. The Beichu sisters were inside the game location. They looked around with interest. Yuran asked, can they trust the other 2 members? The sisters saw the hero and his friends. The guys walked and chatted happily among themselves. Su looked at the girl and asked her forgiveness for being late. Yuran told the main character that they had just arrived. Yizhan said displeasedly that the girls should not be kept waiting. Little sister asked the main character who came with him. Su looked at the interlocutors and wanted to introduce his friends to them. The students stood around the main character. The guy couldn't believe that their friend could meet the main beauties of mention. The main character turned to the girls and wanted to introduce them to his roommates. Sun Qi happily told the girls that he was interested in basketball and dancing. The guy Jing Fan told the sisters that it was a great honor for him to meet them. Sun ran up to Yiran and very excitedly asked for her autograph. The girl answered the guy that she was always happy to help. Suddenly, Yiran heard a noise from the side. She realized that it was her sister. Izhan ran up from the side and hit the students with all her might. They flew up. The girl shouted that these guys can't be trusted. Students fell to the ground from a great height after the flight. The main character decided to himself that he knew so. The inspector appeared from the side. She told her friends that they had arrived on time. Next to the inspector stood the governor of northern China named Wu Li. Zhang explained to her interlocutors that the selection would be carried out by the governor. The man asked the girl if he could see the people she had selected in front of him. Zhang asked the governor, "Where are his fighters?" The man with a smile explained to the girl that his participants had already arrived. The noise of many feet was heard from the side. These were the fighters approaching to participate in the competition. The main character saw his rivals in front of him. They were all from northern China. He looked carefully at his opponents. He studied them with his eyes. The inspector told the participants to listen carefully to the rules. There was testing of skills to enter the world of mountains and seas. Zhang told the participants all the details of the upcoming fight. 3 minutes before the start of the battle, players must take positions and discuss the team's strategy. The entire territory is at the disposal of the participants of the competition. Players who leave the General Assembly area before the start will be disqualified. Each team had to have a captain. If the leader drops out, the team will be disqualified. The inspector looked at the participants in front of her and told them to begin. The main character and his friends prepared to face off against rivals. Baichu Yiran was chosen as the captain of the team. She was very excited. The main character told his friends that he would go on reconnaissance. He added that the soldiers should guard the captain. Sun replied to his friend that everything would be fine. The girl looked at her sister with excitement. Yiran decided to run up to the main character. Baichu grabbed the guy from behind with her hand. She wanted to tell him something. The guy asked his girlfriend what was the matter. Yiran explained that their opponents had undergone special training and they had little chance. The girl advised the main character not to force himself. The main character sat and carefully read information about his rivals within the system. Su sat and thought. He didn't know who to fight first. The main character heard a very loud noise behind him. He realized that danger was approaching. Su-yi was wary. He realized that someone wanted to attack him from behind. A huge shell swept overhead over the trees. He blew the leaves off them. The fighter stood near a huge cannon. He said happily that the first target was ready. The guy looked at his notebook. He said that something more was needed for the world of mountains and seas. The fighter decided to replace the railgun with a qigong wave. It should have been more efficient. The main character suddenly appeared behind the opponent. He asked cheerfully, "What is he drawing?" The fighter jumped aside in fear. The protagonist told the opponent that he wanted to pay attention to the kidney aura deficiency. This needs to be treated. The guy was scared. He couldn't understand where the main character came from behind his back and saw his sketches. The opponent shouted to the main character that he would now test his abilities again. He started to draw something. A huge cannon appeared. The guy shouted joyfully that the spectacle would be magnificent. There was a very powerful explosion. The main character stood calmly in place and looked ahead. Su calmly stopped the projectile with his bare hands. He asked his opponent, "Is he really using the same trick here?" The fighter was surprised. He couldn't believe that the guy stopped the shot with his bare hands. The main character activated a magic skill. A yellow ball appeared in his hands. He said it was a good way to practice. He turned the ball to the sides. Needles appeared in his hands in front of him. The main character swung and launched a whole swarm of needles at his opponent. The needles pierced the opponent's body at full speed. The guy fell to the ground. Su stood at a distance and looked attentively at his opponent. He decided to come over. The main character told the guy that he practices acupuncture and moxibustion. Su explained to the fighter that in 2 hours he would be able to move, but the balance would be shifted. The fighter told the main character that next time he would remember such an effective and simple move. The opponent explained to the main character that he had a task to distract him. The guy said that his colleagues had to find the protagonist's friends. The girl stood and swung her sword at her opponent. The guy was scared. Sun stood and shielded himself with his sword against a possible attack from his opponent. Sun noticed with surprise, as if he had found himself in a fairy tale world. The opponent was holding a test tube in his hands. He told the guy that he was in his dream world. Sun looked around in fear. He saw fairy bears soaring. His opponent told him that he would not get out of here. The player screamed in fear. He realized that he had fallen into a very serious trap. The guy sneezed loudly. All the pink bears around him scattered to the sides. The fighter was scared. He asked the guy displeasedly, how could he destroy his dream world? Sun swung his sword. He wanted to explain to his opponent how he got out of this place. The player launched his flying shield. He happily said that he was allergic to perfume. The flying shield hit the opponent at full speed and knocked him down. The fighter said very dissatisfied to himself that he needed to be more careful. There was a huge explosion to the side. A huge pillar of fire appeared above the forest. The fighters looked to the side in surprise. They didn't understand what had happened. The guy accelerated and ran with all his might towards the explosion. Sun was very surprised that his opponent had disappeared. Sun looked with surprise after the guy who ran away. He didn't understand where he got so much power. The governor watched the duel with attention. The system reported that Zhou Wu had dropped out of the competition. The man said dissatisfiedly that if Zhou Wu had been a little more serious, this would not have happened. The guy was lying in the playroom. A black demon appeared in front of him from the side. Someone silently asked a participant for someone to borrow his body. In the game location, the Baichu sisters continued to fight against their rivals. Yuran was unhappy. She couldn't understand why they couldn't cope with their rivals. The girl noticed that her sister was doing a good job of holding back the attacks. The guy shouted to his girlfriend named Josie that they need to finish with their rivals. Sai warned the guy that Dr. Liu might find out about everything. The fighter replied that the doctor would not know that they had done this trick. The girl told her friend that if something happened, he would be to blame. She put her hand close to the guy's hand. The guy stood opposite the girl. A bright fiery flame appeared around them. The girl was very surprised. She didn't understand what she and her sister were seeing in front of them. A huge flaming monster named Zhu Zhong appeared in front of the girls. The monster slammed his fist onto the ground with all his might. The girls barely had time to jump to the side. The main character looked at his girlfriends. He couldn't understand where they got so much power from. Sui remembered to himself that they had undergone special training from Dr. Su. The sister shouted to the girl to aim at the monster's head. The two of them ran forward to attack. Su scaredly told her friend that they were being attacked by their rivals. The guy extended his palm forward and wanted to use a skill called Flaming Palm against his rivals. The sisters ran very quickly and climbed up the monster's arm. Yiren said joyfully, and with surprise that she saw only children in front of her. The guy displeasedly shouted to his rival not to underestimate them. The monster grabbed the girl with his huge hand. She couldn't break free. My sister shook in fear. She tried to escape from the monster's hands. The guy, scared and joyfully, shouted to his girlfriend that he was very cool. Yuran looked at her rivals cheerfully. She laughed joyfully to herself. Su was very surprised. She couldn't understand what the second sister should do. The fighters did not even notice how Yihan appeared behind them, along with her bow and arrows. Little sister fired several arrows. She told her rivals that as long as there were blind spots, they would lose. The arrows flew past the opponents. They caught them during the attack. The little sister freed herself from the monster's hand. She shouted for Yihan to attack now. Yiran swung her axe. She prepared to strike her opponents. The sister hit the monster's body with all her strength with her weapon to finish him off. The monster's body, after a powerful blow with an axe, shattered into two parts. The sisters were able to defeat their rivals and tied them both with rope. The guy was unhappy. He told the sisters that warriors can be killed but cannot be humiliated. He wanted to challenge them to a duel. At this time, dark black smoke appeared on the side next to the participants. The participants were surprised and frightened. They looked to the side with excitement. The guy opened his test tube. He decided to use it against the attack. The fighter installed a protective, impenetrable dome around the people against demonic attack. The guy happily told Dr. Lu that he was alive. The doctor replied that he had no intention of dying. The doctor asked the participants if they used the fusion technique. The guy replied that the technique was used by Zhou Si. Sun suddenly ran up from the side. He waved his hand and addressed the girl. The guy asked the girls if they were injured. Yuran told him that they were fine and that they had just been saved by Zhou-san. The fighter explained that he was only saving his two friends. He advised the other fighters to run away as quickly as possible. A stranger appeared. He pulled Jing Fan in his hands and gradually approached the protective barrier. The warrior angrily shouted to his rivals that he wanted to take them all hostage. The stranger looked angrily and with great desire at the rivals opposite him. The main character ran through the game location. He wanted to help his friends. Cheng Huang flew up to her master from behind and said that she wanted to tell him something. The guy answered the girl that he was listening to her. The assistant told the surprised guy that another immortal had appeared. The main character came to the game location at the meeting place. He could not understand where his friends had gone. The guy looked closely at the ground and noticed traces of the battle there. The main character felt a black aura rising from the mark on the ground. The aura attacked the guy. Black smoke began to envelop him from all sides. The black aura raised the main character high above the ground. He was shackled hand and foot. The rival angrily told the main character that he was disappointed in him. Friends really believed in it. Su, looking at his opponent, asked how he was going to take on a new look. The main character was able to break the black aura with a sharp movement of his hands. Sui immediately rushed at his opponent with his huge sword. The main character angrily asked the guy, "Where are the rest of his friends?" The fighter looked at the main character and demanded that he admit defeat. The protagonist's girlfriends and friends were unconscious. The fighter suggested that Su take his friends unharmed after admitting defeat. The main character looked angrily at his opponent and said that nothing prevents them from remembering the past. Su attacked his opponent with a very sharp and unexpected movement. The hand on the guy's body began to dry up sharply. Some of his clothes fell off. The fighter looked at his opponent and said that he reads his opponents well. Su explained to his opponent that he would not be able to summon spirits without harm to himself. The fighter laughed and told his opponent that he would not lose anything from it. The main character silently and very excitedly looked at his opponent. The fighter said that the temporary body and soul are a moment for eternity. Eternity is the limit of truth. The main character said that only a madman would seek immortality in an immoral world. A black cloud appeared near the main character's foot. The aura began to take over him. Su looked to the side and around himself with great excitement. He tried to free himself. The fighter watched with interest as the black fog enveloped his opponent on all sides. The guy shouted to the main character that only a madman can defeat time. The main character's body was almost completely covered in black fog. He looked around with one eye. The main character extended his hand to the side. He tried to free himself from the black aura. Su Ye's body was completely shrouded in black mist. The rival told the guy that they had come to the conclusion that they would be enemies forever. The fighter said that you need to find your true path. This will require new settings and a scenario according to which a person will go towards the goal. The guy was surprised. He did not understand what was happening to his spirit. The body of the protagonist began to glow in the black fog. A warrior appeared inside the black aura. His body glowed golden. The main character was completely freed. He told his opponent that it doesn't matter how much time has passed. Behind the guy stood a golden magical warrior. Su took the sword in his hands. He told his opponent that he would remain a lost and pathetic creature. The opponent sent a cloud of black magic against the main character. He shouted that they would still see which of them was a pitiful creature. The main character noticed how his golden assistant took out a sword to fight against the demon from the black aura. The golden fighter repelled the attacks of the black demon right in front of him. The main character realized that if the opponent was watching him all the time, then he knew all his techniques. The opponent, with a smile, told the guy to continue to get stronger. Suddenly, the guy got scared. He noticed something very suspicious. The fighter saw how the main character's sword fell from a height and rested on the ground. The guy saw his image in the sword. He looked at it carefully. The fighter saw his image change in the reflection of the sword. He shouted to the main character that they would now see what would be left of it. The warrior shouted that he was bored. He threw the sword aside with a strong blow. The guy asked his opponent if he really decided that he could defeat him. The golden warrior continued to fight against the black demon with burning eyes. Su asked his opponent displeasedly, is he really going to embrace his entire fantasy? The main character very angrily told the fighter that his strength was already running out. The main character explained to his frightened rival that he should not have indiscriminately called on spirits. The golden warrior looked at the black demon in front of him and decided to finish him off. The fighter swung his golden sword and slammed it down on his demonic opponent. The golden warrior struck the black demon with a blow. The guy said that his opponent was playing for time and became stronger. The fighter looked at the main character and said that he would wait for their next meeting. After that, he disappeared. The main character was silent. He realized that he would have to meet this enemy again. Su said judiciously to himself that there would be no next meeting with the fighter. The golden warrior turned into a huge explosion. He spread a black aura around. Yiren nervously trotted to her sister to bring her to her senses. She said the competition was over. The sister very persistently asked the Ijuns if they had won the competition. The girl smiled. She didn't know what to answer to her sister. Yizun looked into the sky and told her sister that they had won. Two other fighters approached them from the side. The main character was in his dorm room. He took off his virtual glasses. Su looked at the glasses and told his friends that he had everything ready. Sun and Fan ran up to the main character and began to thank him. Sun shouted joyfully to his friend that he was treating him. Another guy said cheerfully that today it was as if they were born again. The main character thought that during the duel against his opponent, he had the feeling that something was wrong. He decided to ask Jiang Shan about everything. The doctor told the guy that he needed his help over the weekend. The main character answered in fear that he had no experience of making house calls. The man handed the guy a document. He told him to look at his medical history. The main character looked at the photograph of the patient. She seemed familiar to him. The document reported that the girl fell into a coma for unknown reasons. Su Ye realized that he saw Zhou Yi in front of him, with whom he had fought before. The main character and the doctor arrived at the hospital. They met the nurse there. The nurse told Dr. Li that the director was already waiting for him. The man answered the woman that he would call her if something happened. Li came up behind him and greeted Dr. Wu. He turned around in fear. The doctor asked the man why he had come and who was with him. Li explained that next to him was his student Su Ye. The main character bowed and greeted Dr. Yu. He realized that he was seeing the governor of Eastern China from the game. The doctor ordered his subordinate to disinfect the needle and begin to act. He reminded me about the patient's chart. The doctor reported that the patient never woke up after the competition. The girl lay unconscious on the bed. Sue realized that she fell into a coma on the day of their gaming competition. The doctor noticed that the patient had a strange heartbeat. This could lead to coma. The man thought that if this was a new incurable disease, it would be problematic. The main character told the man that he would try to cure the patient. The doctor asked the guy if he had encountered similar cases or had he read about it in the ancient scriptures. Sue happily replied that he remembered the method of treatment. The main character looked at the doctor and told him to trust him. The man told the guy that he could not use untested treatment methods. Lee told the doctor that the patient had an unusual pulse. He explained that his student would try to heal the girl. The man was surprised that a student would participate in the treatment. The man angrily shouted that he would not allow the guy to even touch the patient. Lee explained that his student knew what he was doing. The guy's family owns ancient scriptures. Lee explained to the man that all this was risky, but there was no other way out. Dr. Yu decided to give the guy a chance to try. He thought that the girl Xiao he should still have a chance. The doctor told the guy that he could start. He reminded that he was responsible for his career and for the lives of others. The main character opened his package. There were a lot of metal needles there. Sue took one needle in his hand. He prepared to use it on the girl's body. Sue looked at the girl carefully. He realized that she was suffering because of the spirit. The patient's essence seems to be saturated with an evil aura, and this energy is unusually sinister. Sue inserted a needle into the girl's body. He realized that he must use his aura now. Cheng Huang told the owner that she felt the energy of the immortal. The main character realized that he was seeing the game character Zhou Yi in front of him. The main character continued to stick needles into the girl's head for treatment. I suddenly noticed how a yellow fire appeared near one of the needles in my head. The medical device showed how the girl's pulse jumped sharply. The main character stood and looked attentively at the patient. Small glowing yellow spots appeared above the girl. They were heading upward. The doctor was very surprised. He did not understand what was happening to the girl. The man looked at the guy with an attentive gaze and became very worried. The doctor noticed that the main character did not even change his face. Sue was completely calm. The guy began to gently tap the needles in the girl's body. Pieces of black aura appeared around the patient's body. She was still unconscious. The black aura began to rise above the patient and gradually dissolve into the air. The medical device showed how the girl's pulse gradually returned to normal. The man ran up to the guy and asked in fear, "What was that?" Sue answered the doctor that the girl needed to rest a little. The man touched the girl's hand. He noted that her pulse was stable. The doctor took a closer look and noticed that the patient's complexion and breathing had become better. The man told Dr. Lee that his student had great potential. The doctor told the main character that he had done a good job today. Sue thanked the man and replied that it was all thanks to him. The main character told his teacher that he was nervous and would go get some rest. The girl told the main character that she no longer felt the aura. The guy answered the assistant that the patient turned out to be a simple person. Chehuan said with excitement that she felt the power of an immortal from the girl. The main character explained that it was an alien aura. There is someone else. The girl excitedly said that someone insidious was able to fool them. The main character said that when the patient's heart almost stopped, he received a message. The stranger told the guy that he had found his clue. The game is over in this world. Sue received an offer to continue in the world of mountains and seas. Dr. Yu watched with great attention as the main character stood in the corridor and communicated with someone. The man asked the girl if it was she who asked on his behalf for the doctor to come. Jiang answered her interlocutor, which was not difficult for her to do. She reminded the man that his subordinate was saved and he was her debtor. The man told the inspector that her target was the main character. Jiang answered thoughtfully that in the world of mountains and seas, practitioners of traditional medicine would be valued. Inspector? I asked the man if he really wasn't interested in him. The main character and his friend stood near East China at the entrance. Sun told his friend that there are many interesting things in the other world. They can get rich. Yuran turned to Mr. Wang and told him that everything was in place. The policeman replied that Jiang Shan was missing. He now leads the team. The man asked the participants if they remembered the main rule. Van wanted to tell his interlocutors about the main rule in the world of mountains and seas. The man explained to the participants that the one who survives the game will be the winner. Wang explained to participants that fantasy is a common simulation. On the other side of the portal, death will be final. The man explained to his interlocutors that in the world of mountains and seas, other animals would be waiting for them. The girl asked the man if they would be safe in cities in the world of mountains and seas. Van explained to his interlocutor that she was very mistaken. The man said that cities are a dangerous place. There are imperfect laws. There are forces from other countries in the cities. They compete with each other. Therefore, each participant will be for himself. I just thought to myself that the situation turned out to be very difficult. He decided that the immortal was hiding in another world. Wang told his interlocutors that if they were all ready, they could move forward. The students happily confirmed to the man that they were ready to move forward. Someone was carefully watching the people near the portal. He said that it detects fluctuations at the input. The girl was sitting on the beach with a drink and looking at the tablet. The observer reported that guests from the east would soon appear. A man stood in the city and looked very carefully at the bridge over the river. The samurai warrior cut the wooden plank with a very powerful blow of his sword. A Hindu man was sitting in a meditative position near the temple. Someone reported that the established order was no longer effective. New rules for resource distribution will be introduced. The main character stood and looked in front of him into the portal. He thought that it would all start with his vessel. The leadership, in turn, demanded clarification from the Shan regarding the destroyed eastern entrance. Jiang replied that she conducted an analysis of Luo's drug, which is produced abroad, and she is also the culprit of the accident. And there is most likely a spy in the investigation team. And it was with his help that Huan carried out various operations. One of the advisors asked the inspector how she could explain the unexpected appearance of Yo, and whether he was a foreign agent. Sean gave them Sue's personal file and said that he was an ordinary graduate student and had taken part in K-Squad's operations. However, the guy did use strange techniques of various ranks and always defeated his opponents. At the end of the meeting, Commander Hao headed to the newly formed squad. Looking at the young talents, he extremely underestimated them and called them beginners, after which he welcomed them to the world of mountains and seas, which was quite beautiful. Wang noted that they had 6 areas under their control, and they had enough spiritual energy to quickly improve. At this moment, the young master rose in rank quite unexpectedly. The detective was surprised. The indignant Hao could not understand how he was able to move forward 2 stages of development. His teammates were also surprised and began to ask him about it. Yo stated that he felt an impending breakthrough. The commander suddenly ordered everyone to follow him to the assignment room. No one understood what was going on. The main character began to look around. Such an abundant aura reminded him of the Chunkyu era. After all, just by being in this location, he was already improving. The main thing is that the Immortals operation goes smoothly. Having led the team to the errand hall, Hao noted that they should complete tasks in order to get Jade. This is currency and experience. Then, pointing to their wrist bracelets, he said that they stored the fighter's personal information and number. They can also be used to view missions and send an SOS signal when they get into trouble. Su immediately began to familiarize himself with a high-level task that only he could do. Suddenly, an unknown girl approached them and insolently asked which of them was Yi. The young lady said that he was just a child who was just lucky to come first in the tests, after which the overly self-confident girl invited him to have a duel and asked how much gold he had. Sun did not like her such arrogant behavior and he reprimanded her. The impudent lady instantly rushed towards him to strike and said that he should not interfere in this matter. Su, in turn, stopped her hand with a lightning-fast movement and agreed to the duel. Satisfied with herself, she immediately called the teenager into the arena, naively believing that she would defeat him. The perplexed Yuran asked Van why he didn't stop them. In response, the commander sighed heavily and stated that in the world of mountains and seas there are no rules, and here power decides everything. Yo's colleagues were shocked by the detective's statement. A moment later, everyone began to be invited to the upcoming battle between the newcomer and the warrior of eastern China. Naturally, the majority supported the girl, because they simply did not know the guy. The extremely self-confident lady decided to give the newcomer a 3-stroke head start, which she hastened to announce in a business-like manner. However, the young master was not taken aback and answered her in kind, which plunged the girl into shock. At the same moment, the arrogant person hurried to attack Su, intending to demonstrate her strength to him. But the main character easily dodged the blow and subsequently, the girl flew past him, after which she again rushed to attack. But the teenager continued to stand in place, as if he did not feel a threat. Then he once again dodged the blow and calmly stepped aside, so the warlike lady broke the asphalt. Yo noticed that she had a very good reaction, but she was in too much of a hurry, adding that the weak point is easy to find, but pressing on it at the right moment is another matter. A second later, he grabbed her leg. As a result, he was able to neutralize it with just one finger press on a point on his neck. Finally, her ardor subsided, and she admitted defeat. Everyone was shocked by this outcome. The offended girl hurried to leave the arena and declared that she would be stronger next time. At the end of the battle, Iran immediately ran up to Su and asked if he was okay. But Iran, on the contrary, still held a grudge against him. The guy with a smile on his face replied that he was fine, and it was just a training session. The commander, in turn, was dissatisfied and urged the young man not to lag behind. After all, the teenager not only raised his level but also easily dealt with his subordinate Chen Jing. Leading the team to the tunnel, Hao noticed that there were more cities here than in fantasy. Looking inside, they were stunned, because what awaited them next was a world of monsters. Huge snakes and demons walking through the jungle. Van also said that this is reality, and if they die, they will not be able to be reborn. Yo saw the false ginseng and said that it could be exchanged for spiritual jade, so it was better to take the plant. But at that moment, Qi stepped on the medicinal herb and called Fan after him, as he saw a phoenix in the distance. The young master tried to revive the plant and thought that it could still be exchanged. However, Jin, who ran after Sun, again stepped on the ginseng. The main character could not stand it and shouted at them, because these herbs were their source of income. But Qi said that they couldn't fetch much for them, and besides, the circulation of spiritual jades had not yet formed here. Fan added that they would be able to earn more by completing tasks and on the stock market. Realizing that he couldn't reach his stupid teammates, Yo decided to collect these plants alone. The team members did not understand him and went to explore the new map, leaving Su alone. Finally, they left and the guy breathed a sigh of relief, after which he continued to examine the area for the presence of useful herbs. Suddenly, the teenager smelled the disgusting smell of wild animals in the air and became wary. The wrist bracelet instantly notified him of the first-level alarm associated with the invasion of monsters and invited him to go to the shelter. Naturally, the young man hurried back, where he met the concerned Yiran and asked what was the matter. The eternally dissatisfied Yiran asked him a counter-question, where Sun and Jin had gone. The surprised Su said that he thought they were here. Van, in turn, was unable to find their bio-information within the city fortifications. Yo instantly asked Hao what exactly this invasion of animals meant. The commander reluctantly replied that the predators had formed some kind of army, including humanoids. The reason for their appearance is still a mystery, and when they gather together, there is speculation that the city will be attacked. And those who remained outside the city fortifications and shelters most likely will not survive. The perplexed Yuran asked if there was really no way to tell them about this. Wang sadly replied that he was staying, hoping for their luck. Unexpectedly, Su said quite confidently that he would go in search of them. The shocked detective said that he would not be able to resist the invasion of animals, and this would be certain death. However, the guy was determined and said that he couldn't leave his friends in trouble, and he didn't care about persuasion. After which, the young master jumped down. The stunned commander ordered him to return immediately. Meanwhile, Sun and Fan dealt with the predators and counted the demons that had defeated them. Thus, Qi managed to kill 15 monsters and Jin only 13. But there were a huge number of maddened predators, and they became more and more dangerous. At that moment, a cobra of incredible size approached them. The guy did not notice it. The snake rushed to attack with lightning speed. It seemed there was no chance of salvation. However, the main character came to their aid in a timely manner, and, having climbed onto the cobra, tried to pierce its tough skin with a sword. Then he jumped off the monster and called on Sun to find a thistle to apply to Fan's wound. He added that he would personally deal with this monster and hastened to attack the cobra. Yo knew that if he couldn't break through the skin, he wouldn't be able to carry out an effective attack. And the longer this all happens, the stronger the snake will become. He needed to hurry. A moment later, Su still managed to defeat the beast and cut it into small pieces. Stunned, Qi asked the teenager how he managed to do this. At this time, Siskins came running to prey. There were a huge number of them, and they all wanted only one thing. Naturally, the young man was not afraid of them and again drew his blade, then defiantly moved towards them. However, for some unknown reason, they suddenly turned around and walked away. Qi assumed that they had won, but Fan was quick to deny this. Since they did not flee in panic but calmly retreated, this indicated that someone was commanding them. The young man noticed that he heard the sound of a horn in the distance and that they really were not their target. Meanwhile, an army of Siskins attacked the eastern city. Everything was on fire. Wang commanded the guards and ordered the archers to attack the monsters, and it was also necessary to remove the wounded from the battlefield. Hao noticed that this time the invasion of demons happened differently. After all, they previously did not have siege ladders and catapults, which is surprising, because previous reports did not indicate that they have signs of developed intelligence. A few seconds later, a huge serpent appeared on the horizon, riding on which was the leader of the monsters and had a forge. Everyone rushed into the brutal massacre. The detective also fought bravely against the monsters. He didn't expect them to use a massive attack. At this moment, Yuran said that the arrival of reinforcements from other cities would take some time, and she was running out of energy. Suddenly, a huge stone launched by a catapult flew at them, but they managed to jump out of the way. Baichu noticed that the enemy continued to attack. Her little sister stated the opposite. As it turned out, it was Su who threw Qi and Fan into the fortification, thus saving their lives. The perplexed Yuran asked them why they fell from the sky on them. Jin replied that they were flying on Chenghuang, and Ye dropped them, after which the young man called on the commander to save the teenager, as he said that he would force the demons to retreat, but it was dangerous. The enraged Hao did not understand why this guy was constantly being a hero because he could die at any moment. Baichu urged the detective to pay attention to the rather strange invasion of monsters. Meanwhile, their leader continued to move astride the snake and looked out for the young man, which at this moment flew directly above him on Chenghuang. The leader of the beasts noticed him. The young master understood that his provocation was still a success, and everything was going according to plan. Yo called on his she-wolf to go north. The pet asked if it was really in that very place. The leader of the monsters followed them. Su replied that they would indeed have to come to the place of their first meeting. After all, it is there that there is something that will certainly destroy the invasion of monsters. At that moment, the Monster Lord's magical fireball flew past them, which suddenly spread its wings and flew into the air, began to attack the young man with the she-wolf, releasing magical spheres. But Cheng Huang couldn't shake the demon off her tail. The teenager urged her to move more smoothly. Then he began to combine spiritual energies, thanks to which he recently made a breakthrough. As a result, he generated a magic bow and hurried to shoot several arrows at the ruler of the beasts. However, none of them hit the target, and therefore the monster rejoiced prematurely. The main character wondered if he really thought he missed. Subsequently, the arrows stuck into the icy surface and the wind suddenly rose. A moment later, a huge, monstrous creature attacked the ruler by releasing a large snowball that literally froze everything within a few seconds. Thus, most of the predatory animals found themselves under the block of ice. Yo paid attention to Cheng Huan's injury and hurried to bandage the she-wolf. Then, you had to wait until the snow monster calmed down and find medicinal herbs to heal your pet. Finally, when the creature disappeared, they again set off on a long journey. Passing the frozen bodies of demons that were carelessly scattered along the snowy slope, Su thought that there was a barrier between the real world and this dimension. Otherwise, these monsters would have destroyed the earth. Cheng Huang called her master because she found the frozen demon ruler. She noticed a certain bottle with him. The guy took out his blade to pick out an interesting thing and find out what it was. It was obvious that the monster had taken it away from people and filled it with something unknown. The sad wolf noticed that there was nothing to snack on because she was insanely hungry. Suddenly, Wang contacted him and ordered the teenager to return immediately. Having collected all the goods, Yo told Cheng Huang that at the moment she was free and if necessary, he would call her, after which he hurried to return to the base, where his loyal friends were eagerly waiting for him. They were scared to death because they believed that he was no longer alive, and they rushed into their arms. Even the ever-dissatisfied Yuran stated that they were worried about him, but he never deigned to contact them. However, this time it was Yiran who was offended and hurried her sister to return. While the young master was wondering why he had offended the girl so much, Hao was literally boiling with anger. The commander angrily declared that the young man would be punished for leaving the city without permission and disobedience. The protagonist, in turn, admitted guilt and offered a huge amount of resources as compensation, adding that he dealt with the monsters with the help of the snow monster, and besides all the trophies, he has something else. Su showed the pill and said that it would help them master the techniques, and if he needed the capsule, then he was ready to give it as a gift. The detective snatched the pill from him. The teenager thought that he had already been forgiven, but Van said angrily that the attempted bribery was an aggravating circumstance, and this spiritual fruit, along with all the trophies, will go to the benefit of their community. Yo then went to the night market, as he lacked spiritual jade because his skills were quite energy-consuming. He was also forbidden to leave the city, and since everyone was practicing their skills with VI-R points, no one needed his pills. On the way, he met Chen again. The girl said that everyone was talking about his feat, how he fought off the invasion of animals. Seeing his small bag, Jing asked if this was all he had earned for the whole day. The guy answered her boldly, The young lady realized that she had touched the young man's nerve and urged him to calm down. And if he wants to know where else he can make money, then he should follow her. Taking him to the Jade Treasure Shop, she stated that this was the main shadow market in the world of mountains and seas. Su remembered how Fan had told him about the different ways to obtain spiritual jade. The young master looked around and found that the owner of the shop clearly had many hobbies. At that moment, a young lady came out and joyfully greeted the brave warrior Ye, after which Wang Yumeng introduced herself and asked what exactly the young man was looking for. The main character said that he was not going to buy anything. Van, in turn, was not even upset. Yumeng kindly invited them inside to look around, and if they were interested in anything, she would be nearby. Then Chen whispered why she brought this poor guy here in the first place. After all, she doesn't run a shelter for the disadvantaged here, and she doesn't play for charity. Jing noticed that he could become her employee. Su suddenly called out to Ms. Wang and asked if she was buying things. Yumeng replied that if he offers something interesting that she doesn't have, she will definitely buy it. Yo immediately took out a qi strengthening pill, and the girl's eyes widened. The shop owner said that she did not expect to see the legendary capsule with her own eyes. Wang instantly offered him 6,000 spiritual jades and asked if he agreed. The teenager was surprised that Yumeng was really willing to pay such a sum for this capsule. Chen asked if this pill was really that good and she wouldn't even check the product. The confident owner of the store said that she had seen many similar treasures and could distinguish them from fakes. Understanding that at the auction she will be able, with the help of decoys, to inflate the price and earn a round sum for it. Wang decided to ask Su if he had anything else interesting for sale. Yo took out a bottle filled with the same capsules and stated that if she wanted, she could buy the entire batch. The girl literally went into shock. She had no idea how rich the guy was in pills. Naturally, she had nowhere to put such an amount in the near future. But greed did not allow her not to take it. The young man realized that she would not be able to handle so many capsules and asked forgiveness from the stunned Yumeng. Adding that he had someone to offer him 200 pills, Wang instantly rushed after the departing Su. Then she completely blocked his path and said that she was just embarrassed for a second when she saw so many capsules. In the end, the girl nevertheless forked out a large sum of jades, and the guy thanked her for her cooperation. Then he showed her the bottle that he took from the leader of the demons. Chen noticed that it was empty, but Wang saw traces of some strange mold on it. But Yo said that if he took it with him to the attack, then it was clearly of some value. Yumeng, in turn, hastened to conduct a laboratory study of this mold. The young master asked her what she was able to find out about this pollen. The girl said that she had never seen such a mineral powder before and did not understand how the animals were able to crush it so much. Jing assumed that they were dealing with highly advanced beastoids, but the main character hastened to put forward a different version and said that people might be helping them. Soon the commander held a meeting and noted that he did not know where these monsters came from or what goals they were pursuing. And the main task of the team is to find out the appearance of the invasion of these monsters, adding that it doesn't matter where they carry out the mission, in the rear or on the front line, but the main thing is the result. Su thought that he had been living for more than 2,000 years but had not encountered this mineral before, and where the factory for processing this powder might be located. At that moment, Hao threw a writing pen at him, and the young man easily caught it. The evil Wang urged him not to be unauthorized anymore and to strictly follow all instructions. Yo asked whether it was really so important how exactly he would achieve the result, since the detective himself spoke about this. The commander, flushed with anger, understood that the teenager had caught him and decided to make some adjustments. Having assigned Yiran to watch him, Su was naturally surprised, as was the young lady. After some time, they were already walking through the forest and the young man noticed that they had not talked to her since the last time. Bai Chu ignored him, looked at the map and reported that it was in this area that demons often gathered. The teenager suggested going on a reconnaissance mission, since he already had some experience. The offended person continued to remain silent. The perplexed young master could not understand what he had done to deserve such an attitude. Suddenly, a distant sound was heard and most of the animals' eyes lit up red. Looking out from behind a tree, they saw an unknown person riding a wolf. Yuran assumed that the monsters were again preparing an attack, and with the help of this powder, they zombify the animals. At that moment, the demon held his staff and the animals followed him. Yo realized what the marks were on the bottle and called on Baichu to report everything to Van while he dealt with the monsters, after which the main character bravely rushed towards the leader of the monsters and drew his sword. As a result, a massacre ensued, in which the young man had the upper hand. Despite the fact that all the zombified animals immediately rushed to attack him, Su, in turn, immediately dealt a crushing blow to the leader of the mutants, who instantly flew into the crowd of animals, clearly not expecting such incredible strength from a person. The monster then began to hurriedly activate the vanishing technique, creating a magic circle around itself. At the same moment, he attacked the guy to gain some more time for teleportation. However, Yo used a magical barrier with lightning speed and thereby blocked the demon's attempts, after which he rushed to the attack and eliminated the leader of the animals with just one movement. Naturally, the predators became furious due to the effect of the powder and rushed at the teenager. The young man did not stand on ceremony with them and gave battle to the angry mutants. One after another, the young master easily overpowered and took their lives. After a certain time, the ground was literally flooded with the blood of desperate animals. However, at this time, Yuran suddenly appeared and called out to the main character. Concerned, Yo urged her to immediately leave this location and return to the city. Suddenly, a huge lion headed towards her, which a moment later jumped on Baichu. Su managed to jump away with her, so they fell down into the pit. The girl looked around and noticed that apparently she was standing near the secret entrance. The guy repeated again that she just needed to come back. The embittered young lady asked if he knew why she behaved this way. Then she herself answered that Yo was always getting into the thick of things. Suddenly, Yuran burst into tears and said that he was stronger than all of them. But at this rate, they could lose a friend. The teenager was literally shocked by the fact that she actually cared about him. Su sadly lowered his head and asked her for forgiveness because he had lived alone for too long and was not used to outside care. At that moment, a Siskin suddenly came out of the cave with a bag filled with something unknown. Naturally, our heroes became curious about what was in his bag, and after dealing with the monster, they discovered crystals in the bag. The young man suggested that this was the place where the powder was processed. Yuran took the stone in her hands and felt hot. Seeing the girl's condition, Yo urged her to come to her senses because their age difference was too big. But Baichu, touching his body, noticed that it was quite cool, and she felt stuffy. The young master began to realize that this mineral was too dangerous for people, as it clouded her reason, and the first thing was to rid her of intoxication. Su, with a sharp movement, pricked her with a needle in the neck. Suddenly, some kind of magic began to emanate from the young lady's body, and Yuran shouted sharply, after which she seemed to come to her senses and, looking around, asked what had happened to her. The main character replied that these silicates cause blood to boil and awaken passion in a person, and it was precisely because of this that she began to behave inappropriately and attacked him. As a final result, the teenager received a slap in the face from the girl and could not understand what he had done wrong again. Then they went inside the cave where the Siskins were mining crystals and a huge stone monster stood above them. And as long as these ore-bearing veins existed, there was a risk that the animals would again fall under the influence. One of the workers suddenly saw them and froze in place. Yuran understood perfectly well that he could not be allowed to escape. Baichu subsequently shot him with a bow, and the arrow tore off his arm. At the same moment, an angry stone guard walked towards them with a pickaxe in his hands. He immediately struck, but hit the wall. The stones scattered in different directions. Yo urged the young lady to stay put while he dealt with this big guy. The guy also ordered Chang Huang to protect Yuran. The she-wolf instantly rushed towards her. Meanwhile, the thug found himself in front of the young man and hastened to attack him. However, once again he struck a stone wall and the rockfall began again. Su instantly unsheathed his blade and immediately began to deal with it, after which the thug began to use the same dark magic against the young master. But the flame rushed past the main character. Yo assumed that he had missed. Turning around, he discovered that his fire spheres had hit the stone barriers. Thus, the demon cleared the way for himself because he did not intend to throw silicates. The Siskins, in panic, began to scatter throughout the cave. Yo understood that they were simply afraid of their leader. Su stood in front of a huge vein of crystals and called on the stone guard to attack him. Naturally, the big man hurried to attack the young man, but the teenager jumped sharply to the side and the monster hit the silicates. Without wasting time, the guy used his abilities and activated a certain seal over him. A moment later, fiery snakes headed towards the giant, limiting his movements. Since the monster was chained with gold chains, Yo said that he just wanted to talk to him. Finally, the stone brute stopped resisting and fixed his menacing gaze on Su. Then the teenager began to explain to him that people do not need these crystals, and if he, in turn, agrees to limit access to the cave to everyone except people, then all these precious silicates will belong only to him. The brute silently looked at the young man. Yo asked whether he understood what was being asked of him. The guard was still silent, but judging by his facial expression, he really understood everything. Finally, the young master left him alone in the cave and went with Yuran back to the city. They literally floated in the air riding a she-wolf. Sue urged her to hold on tight so as not to fall. However, the main character was haunted by the thought that he had forgotten about something and began to think. Then he suddenly remembered that he needed to take a sample of these silicates. Baichu quietly laughed at him, but the guy said that he usually remembers everything and this is an accident. And he didn't even forget about the cookies she gave him. The box was wrapped in orange ribbon. Yuran decided to clarify and asked what these cookies tasted like. Yo replied that there were mint and chocolate ones, and he gave the rest to Fan and Chi. The upset girl sadly said that he still gave them to others. Sue said that they didn't have time to have breakfast that day and he shared it with them. Suddenly, her emotions got the better of her, and the young lady hit the teenager on the back, telling him that he should look forward. The perplexed guy could not understand why she was offended again and why she was behaving this way. Suddenly, Yuran handed him a bag of silicate samples and said that she had remembered to take them, adding that this was quite strange because he remembered the cookies, but was not able to remember the task. At this time, Mu's assistant noticed that this guy was able to identify the location of the silicates. Accordingly, an invasion of animals is most likely not expected in the near future. Yoon in turn ordered her assistant to cancel her next meeting. The surprised girl said that there would be a banquet at Kao's house, but the woman replied that she needed to pick up her girls. After some time, Sean contacted Wang and expressed gratitude to him for completing the mission about the monster invasion. However, she was confused by that dungeon. The commander asked in surprise what was wrong with that cave. Jiang stated that this is the first time she has seen demons avoid contact with people, and this is quite strange. And she had an assumption that Yo was able to tame the local stone thug. Hao doubted the young man's abilities and asked if she really believed in this. The chief inspector of the Eastern District insisted that the detective closely monitor the guy because he is not so simple. Shan was also able to find out who the rats that destroyed the gate were, and they had already even managed to penetrate the world of mountains and seas. Van was shocked by such information. Suddenly, Chi burst into Sue's room and said that Yuran and Yuran were taken by their mother. The guy reacted calmly and said that there was nothing wrong with this and that it should be so. The teenager also said that he was not going to get involved in their family affairs. Soon the next meeting began, which Hao held, but the young master was thinking about his own things. Van pointed a laser pointer at him and asked if he was listening to him at all. The young man answered positively. Sun paid attention to Yo's drawing, which depicted Baichu, and realized that he actually cared. Qi decided to tease the main character a little, and hanging bows on the cactus, noticed that it looked like Yiren. However, Sue did not appreciate his joke and, ignoring the guy, went into the fresh air. At that moment, the restless joker pretended that one of the sisters called him. The young man immediately ran up to him and asked where they were. Sun, breaking into a smile, admitted that he was just joking and no one called him. Finally, Yo went outside for a walk, but thoughts about the girl haunted him. He tried in every possible way to distract himself, realizing that nothing could happen between them, and accidentally approached their house. Perhaps it was fate, but Sue decided to leave, when suddenly an unknown person called out to him and asked if he was Yiran's friend. It turned out to be the girl's father named Ji. He said that he was conducting research on the increased concentration of spiritual energy, after which he brought him to his house, where he decided to introduce the young man to his wife. The businesswoman was extremely reluctant to greet the teenager while drinking wine. The young master realized that he was not very welcome here, but he could no longer leave. Suan asked if he had come to their daughters. Yo confirmed his assumptions and asked where they were. However, the embittered Mu said that he could not visit them and he needed to leave their house. Yoon noted that she had agreed to transfer them to the Jasper Clouds school, where, in her opinion, they would be better off. An outraged Jia stated that she should have discussed this with him before deciding their fate. But the woman replied that she did it for their own good and earlier he had done the same, sending them to the world of mountains and seas. The angry Zhuan said that at that time they did not know about the animal invasions, and it was dangerous to stay here. Mu also got angry and said that he never asked her opinion when making decisions personally, and now he is not happy with this. The main character hurried away and said goodbye to Baichu's parents, realizing that he definitely did not belong here. Meanwhile, they reached their limit and even began to use their abilities. Jia mastered fire, and Yoon used ice techniques. It seemed that this would not end so easily. The woman began to accuse her husband of not caring about his family and only research was important. Then she attacked Zhuan. The man tried to calm her down and said that they actually had a guest. The embittered Mu said that this brat offered their daughters pear cultivation, and he was no guest. The teenager, in turn, said that in fact she understood everything wrong. Sei noticed that she was crossing the boundaries of what was permitted, and she needed to cool down. Suddenly, they nevertheless attacked each other, and Yo stood between them, after which he began to restrain their attempts. At a certain moment, the woman unexpectedly flew away from Xuan's leaking flame, but he managed to catch her. An enraged Yun blamed Su for everything and ordered her not to meddle in other people's affairs. The young master stated that, in fact, the girls came here specifically to be with their family. But cultivating in the real world is very difficult, and they themselves understand this very well. Finally, the couple reconciled and Jia asked for forgiveness for spending little time with his family and immersing himself in his research. After which Mu contacted a representative of the Jasper Cloud School and asked if her girls had made it. Shoubai said that they were attacked on the way and their eldest daughter was safe, but the youngest was on the verge of death. Everyone was shocked by this information. Yun was beside herself and said threateningly that she would destroy everyone who touched her daughters. Arriving at Yuran's hospital, Xuan noticed that they had no basis and therefore could not prove their involvement. Yo, in turn, asked Jie who they were and what was happening. The father replied that this is the Cao family and they are major players in the financial and pharmaceutical business. Mu added that they were forced to cooperate with people from the country, but they refused. Su advised them to show restraint, as they were counting on their impulsiveness. At this moment, Cheng Huang suddenly asked the owner to come out and talk to them. The perplexed young master asked what exactly she wanted to declare. The she-wolf said that that girl's body was poisoned by devilish qi, but the young man said that this was how they used to explain hallucinations in mentally ill people, and Yuran simply weakened a little. However, the pet reported that the devilish qi turns everything into ashes and erases consciousness, and if Bai Chu is not cured of this illness soon, they may lose her. The main character asked if she knew how to cure the young lady. Wan thought about it. Suddenly, Yo himself remembered that in ancient times, this was cured with chalcedony water. They then arrived at the dungeon registration platform. Su asked Chung why it was so official. She replied that everything was developing. Suddenly, unknown people approached them, and the teenager noticed that he did not expect to meet here the main star of the world of mountains and seas. He introduced himself as Cao Xinghe, the second son of the most powerful family in this dimension. He asked why the young man came here. The guy replied that he liked to explore new locations. The arrogant boy said that if Yo comes over to his side, he will become a great man in the future. Su quickly made it clear to him that he wanted nothing to do with the Chao family. His bodyguard reacted instantly and said that he had no right to talk to the master like that and speak about the family like that. As a result, he attacked him with his fists. But the teenager immediately jumped to the side, and the guard Xinghe grabbed Yi and said that, according to the registration rules, they do not have a pass to the dungeon. Cao called on Uncle Chen to calm down, and they finally left the registration platform. The girl was glad to see the guy and noticed that from the moment he saved her, she had been looking for him, but did not expect to meet him in the world of mountains and seas. Yo asked if she really worked here as a senior inspector. The young lady replied that she had decided to get a quieter job. Su also wondered why it was so difficult to get into the dungeon. She explained that this cave has a heritage, and that is why the tournament is being held here, adding that the conditions are quite simple, and to get into the dungeon you need to win 10 battles. The teenager instantly took part. He literally, with one blow, defeated the next contender in the arena to get into the cave. After a certain time, the young master was able to deal with 9 fighters, and she admired this result. However, the next opponent turned out to be Chen Tao, who hastened to declare that he would grind the boy into powder. The main character, in turn, called him to action instead of 1,000 empty words. The old man called him extremely impudent and hurried to attack Yo using his skills. The teenager noticed that the spells on the opponent's cards did not carry any spiritual energy. Su seemed to be under the influence of his abilities, but it was just an illusion. Chen naively believed that everything was going according to plan and stated that he had learned this skill in the country of Jie. But literally, a couple of seconds later, he found himself in a magic cage and did not understand what had happened. The gloating young man noted that he could not defeat him with card tricks. He added that he had traveled to another country in vain for this rather old trick. Uncle Cao hastened to refute his guesses and immediately destroyed the magic barrier. Then he rushed into another attack, saying that no one had ever managed to defeat him. Yo, in turn, instantly used the yin-yang technique, with the help of which he eliminated the enemy. The fiery beam literally pierced Chen's body, causing him quite significant damage. As a result, the defeated old man flew to the side while his mask shattered into small pieces. Even Zhou was shocked by this outcome because Chao was quite a strong fighter. Su asked her if he could now get a pass to the dungeon. At that moment, he suddenly received a call from Fan. The guy said that Yuran's condition had deteriorated sharply. The teenager, in turn, urged him to take care of her family while he finished the case. The young man understood perfectly well that he needed to act quickly to save Baichu. Meanwhile, Shan came to Wang and said that he could not be left for a minute, as something irreparable had already happened. The depressed commander asked Jiang for forgiveness and said that it was his fault. Hao stated that he had an urgent matter that he wanted to talk to her about. However, it was at this moment that they were interrupted by Sun. The guy flew into the office and said that Yuran had sent him a message. Baichu complained that she was very scared, and it was dark here, after which someone suddenly grabbed her. The detective and Shan immediately arrived at the scene of the Jasper Cloud's car accident. Jiang asked him if there was anything strange about this. Wang replied that it was not like the Tao family's methods. In addition, it is not clear how the school students ended up next to the path of life and death. Moreover, this route was always controlled by local authorities and was considered safe. Nothing like this ever happened on it. Hao noticed that the strength of the disciples was not inferior to the attackers, but they did not expect to be near the path of life and death. Shan urged the commander to find information on changes in tectonic plates under the gorge. A moment later, the result was shocking, because the changes were more than rapid. Even the inspector of the Eastern District did not expect such a fateful outcome. She ordered Wang to immediately send letters to the other 5 senior inspectors, because Yuran needed to be saved. At this time, the young master hurried to go into the dungeon, but the same annoying Xinghe called out to him. Cao said that he should not take the place of someone who really wants to get there and showed the amulet. However, the young master ignored the arrogant boy and went into the cave. Going inside, Yo asked Cheng Huang where the Chalcedony water was. The she-wolf replied that he would find the source by crossing the bridge. One of those in the dungeon said that he could not find the legacy, since they had already tried to do so. But the main character still went deeper into the cave. The guy again repeated that he should not do this. A huge snake appeared on Su's path. The teenager did not expect such a turn. The dragon hurried to release a sphere of fire in his direction, but the young man managed to jump away, after which, drawing his blade, he said that he was ready to save the monster's life, but on condition of his retreat. Naturally, the snake did not listen to him and rushed to attack, and subsequently the monster paid with his life. Because Yo defeated the fierce dragon with just one swing of his sword, the stunned fighter shouted joyfully that the demon was finally defeated, and Su moved on. The guy ran up to his teammates and declared that the way was clear, and they could go to catch the legacy. Xinghe followed him. He asked the warriors which of them was able to defeat the fire serpent. The young man replied that it was the master who repelled the invasion of animals. Cao was shocked. Meanwhile, the teenager began to cross the bridge to the other side. Suddenly, the self-confident Xinghe called out to him and said that he kills 5 of these dragons every time. Unexpectedly, Yo ordered no one to approach the bridge. Everyone froze in place, and only the weak-minded Cao declared that this bridge was in perfect order and he could not deceive them. He naively believed that Su was simply afraid of being left without production and wanted to get rid of his competitors. Xinghe hastened to say that the struggle for heritage must take place in conditions of fair competition. Suddenly, the young master pushed him to the side and the guy backed away. At the same time, he jumped back. At that moment, a huge fireball flew between them, which destroyed the bridge. As it turned out, the defeated snake, with its last breath, managed to attack them. The naturally stupid Chao accused him of deliberately destroying the bridge. Thus, the main character ended up on the other side and hurried to get Chalcedony water. The enraged teenager ordered his minions to find something to build a new bridge in order to go after the heritage. However, instead, there was wild fear on the faces of the warriors. The guy asked what was the matter, stating that they have nothing to fear, because when he gets to the heritage, everyone will get a reward. Suddenly, he turned around and saw a huge monster who hurried to draw his sword. The frightened young man said that this dungeon urgently needed to be blown up. At this time, Yo finally reached the source of Chalcedony water, which Huang informed him about. Su decided to try it on himself, and taking a little water into his hands, Chung stated that it was not used that way. Suddenly, the young man felt unusual sensations. His body sparkled with golden light. The she-wolf realized that in fact the owner had made a new breakthrough in development. The teenager, in turn, noted that you just need to know how to handle this water. After which he took a full bottle and said that now the job is finally done. Suddenly they heard the cries of the weak-minded Xinghe, who begged for help. At the meeting, the inspectors asked Zheng if she really wanted to send people on the path of life and death in search of one girl. In response, Shan asked a counter-question. Are they really so heartless and will just let her die? The governor of northern China urged her not to make a tragedy out of this. Moreover, they had previously sent several groups there that disappeared without a trace. The inspector urged them to look at the pictures taken 2 days ago so that they would change their minds. Looking at the incredible footage, Wu was shocked and said that this could not be. Jiang noted that they had better hurry, since the area of the path of life and death was rapidly expanding. At this time, the monster grabbed Xinghe, who asked to help him and declared that he would give them any amount of money. The demon, in turn, struck the warriors, thereby literally creating a crater in the ground. Naturally, they got scared and hastened to leave the dungeon. Cao realized with bitterness that this was his end and no one could help him. However, at that moment, Yo unexpectedly decided to help him and, throwing his blade, cut off the monster's hand. The guy collapsed to the ground. Su asked if a genius like him really needed help. Xinghui understood that he just wanted to laugh at him, and that's why he returned. The young man noticed that he had better think about how to escape from this demon because he promised to blow up his cave. Suddenly, it dawned on Cao that in fact this monster was that same legacy. He immediately threw his spiritual net at him to immobilize him, but the main character noticed that there was no way this net could hold such a thug. However, Xinghe was sure of the opposite, because it was made by the best craftsman of his family. As a result, the demon easily cut off his net, but Cao managed to throw a chain around his hand. Naively assuming that this time he would not get out, the monster easily threw him aside. The young master urged Lu to stop this circus and stop beating up the weak, adding that only he wielded a sword so clumsily, urging him to make contact. Then Su nevertheless admitted that he saw a stone stele with the inscription, "Here lies the soul of a warrior from the Lu clan." The monster seemed to fall into a stupor and stared at the teenager. Yo asked him not to be offended. After some time, he acquired human form and took the young man to a strange place as if for a dungeon. The guy told him that he had come for chalcedony water to cleanse his girlfriend's body of the devil's qi. Su did not expect that there was such a quiet place in the cave, in the form of a gazebo with a thatched roof, and asked Lu how he ended up here. The master replied, he and his wife decided to live away from civilization and went to the Imatian Mountains, but they did not know that the cave was connected to this world. After which the warrior told him a story about how he fought with demons and his body suddenly weakened, and he also lost his wife. And subsequently, all he had left was his soul, and the local kids haunted him with their fictitious heritage. Suddenly, Yo began to leave, stating that he needed to save someone and had very little time left. Lu noticed that he had not been so compassionate before and assumed that someone had fallen into his soul. The guy ignored him and moved on, but the master suddenly asked to join him. The young master did not mind. Meanwhile, the frightened Xinghe did not know what to do. At this moment, the monster's body sparkled sharply, after which it completely disappeared. In his place stood Su, pleased with himself, and said that the legacy liked him better. The head of the Tao family at this time asked the eldest son if Xinghe had returned home. Qian answered in the negative. His father noticed that he was not like his younger brother, who would definitely achieve success. But the young man said that Uncle Chen told him how his beloved son returned empty-handed. The old man refused to believe it and asked Qian to help him get up to prepare everything and hand over the inheritance to Xinghe. Suddenly, his eldest son put the muzzle of a gun to his father's head and said that he did not agree with this. Then he pulled the trigger and killed him, declaring that he would definitely take care of his younger brother. Qian's assistant suddenly came into the room and said that from now on he is the head of the family. The guy looked at her and immediately asked what she managed to find out. The girl said that their main problem is called Su Ye, and he is closely connected with Bai and the operational department, and he also inherited the legacy. The next day, Qian went to Bai, saying that he understood her, since he himself took care of his sick father. An angry Yun ordered him not to approach her and to get out of here immediately. The guy said that after the death of his father, he became the head and hopes for further cooperation with their family. Jai answered menacingly that his family had been harassing them for many years and it would not be so easy to fix it. The young man noticed that if they shared information about the eternal spiritual canon, their daughter would soon recover. The embittered Zhuan declared that he was no different from his father for asking the same thing. Tian, in turn, pointed a gun at them and threatened that if they did not agree, the consequences would be quite dire. Suddenly, the young master pushed him aside and urged him not to start a showdown in the hospital. The main character told Jia that the operations department had vouched for him and asked to be allowed to help them, after which he provided him with evidence in the form of the signatures of inspectors Zhang and Wu. Yo very convincingly asked him to leave Yuran's recovery to him. Naturally, they had no other choice and agreed to trust the teenager. Tian found this situation quite funny because even the inspectors vouched for this kid. And after some time, Su went with a bottle of chalcedony water to Baichu's operating room. The guy understood that the devilish qi had eaten into her too deeply and spiritual jade could not help here. The young man could not allow Yuran to die and immediately took action. Yo, in turn, opened a bottle of water, which at the same moment was released into the wild, after which she literally enveloped the girl's body with numerous streams. At some point, Baichu began to break away from the couch and rise to the heights. Su used the expulsion of the devilish qi. Then he checked her pulse, which miraculously stabilized and her spiritual energy was restored. Lu suddenly appeared and said that demonic qi not only affects the internal organs, and even if she wakes up, she may become the walking dead, since her consciousness is clouded and her soul is absorbed by qi. Yo noticed that in this case, the lost part of her soul must be urgently replenished. The master urged Su to use his soul to finally save the girl, but the young man said that for this it is not necessary to use his soul and that he can find another. Besides, Lu just got out of the dungeon and didn't even have time to really enjoy his freedom. However, he insisted that the teenager should not waste time, as this was the only way to help Yuran. The main character realized that he could not be convinced, and perhaps this was really for the better. Yo said sadly that he and his wife helped him so much when he first arrived in the kingdom of Chu. Lu pointed out that he had also helped them a lot, and now it was time to pay back. After which they said goodbye forever, and the master's soul entered Baichu's body to give her life. A moment later, the girl reached out to Su and grabbed his robe. Finally, Yuran woke up and joyfully greeted the young man. He was also sincerely glad to see her in health. Meanwhile, Qian talked with Ye's ex-girlfriend and noticed that she had rather primitive tastes. Yu stated that he was not as simple as he might seem, and that he needed to be dealt with before the young man became even stronger. Cao also asked Mu, as a hacker, to verify the letter of guarantee sent from the operational management address. When Wang found out that Fan and Su had forged this letter, he became furious and began to scold them. After all, if someone finds out about this, then everyone will have problems and will lead to irreversible consequences. The young master took all the blame on himself and said that he forced Jin to forge documents. Fan hastened to refute this information. At that moment, Shan came in and said that Baichu was finally getting better and would soon make a complete recovery. However, the inspectors wrote a whole folder of reprimands against them all. Yo assumed that Zhang had already solved this problem. Since she was so joyful, the inspector confirmed his guesses. Then she asked Fanya to set up their firewall so that no one could ever hack them again. And for Su, she had a special task that only a professional like him could complete. After all, thanks to his actions, many began to fuss in management. Taking advantage of the vulnerabilities of the medical system, they appropriated public funds, and the task was to bring them down. The next day, the guy decided to infiltrate their circle of activities and began to claim that he dreamed of devoting himself to medicine. He asked Zheng why only they were at the interview. The doctor replied that her opinion was enough. It was Shan who asked him to look after her. The girl decided not to waste time and said that since he did not have a medical license, she could not accept him. She seemed to understand that this was a rather sore subject for the young master. The main character continued to play the role and began to ask her to meet him, because this is very important for him. Zheng replied that she knew about his merits in the real world, and if he so wanted to become a doctor, then he needed to study Western medicine. After which the young lady asked Ayun to give her the needle. The guy obediently gave it to the doctor. Then she began to pierce her hand. She said that any medicine is powerless against the consequences of being on the path of life and death. Suddenly, the doctor showed the capsule and noticed that only they helped her slow down the disease. Suddenly, the girl collapsed unconscious on the floor. Ayun instantly rushed to her aid. He tried to open Zheng's mouth so that she could swallow the medicinal capsule faster. Yo noticed that she would not be able to swallow it, since her neck was already ossified and covered with black crystals. And left, relying only on spiritual energy, Su immediately snatched the needle. But suddenly the doctor opened her eyes and urged the young man not to waste his spiritual energy in vain. Ayun also demanded that he move away from her, because even the best doctors could not help her, and he, especially, could not do this. However, the teenager urged him to calm down and not disturb him, after which he began to act. At the same time, the guy understood that her illness was different from Yuran's, although he was also exposed to the devilish qi on the path. Yo immediately directed his spiritual energy to the convergence point of all meridians and stabbed her in the head with a needle. Since demonic qi is dark energy, it was necessary to clear the paths for the circulation of vital forces from it. Subsequently, Su found the most clogged place in her body and discovered monsters. The young master, in turn, eliminated them with a lightning strike. Shocked, Ayun declared that he would demand that he be immediately expelled from the world of mountains and seas. After a couple of minutes, the main character said that Jung was safe and everything was fine. The young man looked at the doctor and really did not see a single black crystal on her body. Soon the girl came to her senses. The concerned guy asked how she was feeling. The doctor replied that she was already better. She looked at Yo and asked him why he really came here. Then Su showed her the contract and admitted that, judging by the investigation of the operational department, she was related to the smuggling shipment. Shen was shocked and replied that she had never been involved in purchasing medicine, but for some reason her name appeared in the document. After all, Ayun was always responsible for the supply. The young lady asked the young man if he really did it. Finally, the teenager admitted that she never cared about the employees and never gave him a bonus, and he wanted to live like a normal person and not count his pittance salary and borrow money from friends. At that moment, Yo neutralized him with his skills and said that he would tell the operational management about the rest. Zheng, in turn, realized her guilt and said that she had disgraced all the teachers. Su hastened to reassure her and stated that she was not to blame for anything and that she had simply encountered a bad employee. The doctor thanked him for everything and asked how she could be useful to him. The guy asked her to talk about what she encountered on the path of life and death, and also to help rid the world of people like Ayun. She, meanwhile, recorded Yuran's voice message and notified that they would definitely pull her out soon. Only Sun didn't know whether she could read it or whether Baichu was even alive. However, a moment later he received a message from her. The teenager immediately jumped up. After reading it, he came to the conclusion that it was necessary to report this to Inspector Jiang. At that moment, an earthquake suddenly began and the ceiling literally fell down. Yoon saw Yuran approach the window, where clouds were gathering over the city. Miu urged Baichu to throw a blanket over herself to avoid catching a cold, and noted that she should have been woken up when she woke up. The worried girl said that this had begun and they needed to immediately unravel the eternal spiritual canon. At this time, Qian was sitting in his office with Shui and asked her what she managed to find out about Yoon. Miu showed him the CCTV footage and asked if he knew what was in her suitcase. Cao realized that she was carrying with her a puzzle with a solution to the primordial spiritual canon and asked why he brought it to the hospital. Zhu said it didn't matter. The main thing was that they had a great opportunity. The guy said that he would send his people for the suitcase and asked why she needed this eternal spiritual canon. The girl did not answer him and asked a counter-question where his brother had gone. Qian assumed that he was doing nonsense as always, adding that it is extremely undesirable for him to get involved in family affairs for his own good. Meanwhile, Zheng sent all the information about the people involved in the speculation to the operational department, which was reported to Ye, and they are all already escorted in the control car. And the doctor also promised to ratify Su's medical qualifications. At the same time, she asked the young master to personally deal with the new batch of drugs in the warehouse. Subsequently, the young master went on behalf of the doctor to inspect the supply. The employees greeted the main character extremely warmly and called him a savior. They asked Yo to help them because yesterday someone broke into the warehouse and turned everything upside down. Su looked around carefully and found that everything was indeed a complete mess. He also noticed deep scratches on the wall, as if someone wanted to strike fear into everyone. After which the guy dismissed the employees for lunch and began to restore order himself. Among them was Jing He in a mask who caused this fuss, but the young man again ruined everything. Suddenly, the teenager stopped him and asked him to help him, because he couldn't cope here alone. Yo urged him to separate the weeds from the medicinal herbs and, if necessary, check everything against the reference book. Cao was only interested in one moment, whether Su recognized him. The young man continued to give him instructions. Then he ordered the plants to be cleared of clay and only then sorted. Xinghe obediently agreed. Feeling only hatred, the guy again began to urge him on, which instantly infuriated Cao. And finally, he sent the teenager to hell. He immediately took off his mask and said that he was not going to do anything. after which he completely admitted that it was he who scattered all the medicines and introduced himself as Xinghe, adding that the Tao family does not serve anyone and he is also no exception. He had long wanted to demonstrate his abilities to him and fight in a fair fight. But with a lightning-fast movement, he pressed on his acupuncture points. Xinghe could not do anything. Su then seemed to control Cao's body and manifest his source of spiritual aura. The guy urged him to hold his breath and get ready for the most interesting thing. A moment later, windy whirlwinds appeared, controlled by Xinghe. He knew that incredible power lay within him, but the young man did not expect to see such a thing. Suddenly, everything stopped and the delighted Cao said that he was truly gifted by nature. Yo noticed that he did not know how to use the skills and offered a contract for training and development of his skills. But Xinghe did not like the terms of the agreement, and he refused to obey Su. The young master still urged him to think about this proposal, but Cao was unshakable in his decision. Suddenly, Jiang called the main character and said that she had two news. One is bad and the second is good. The teenager asked her to tell the bad one, but Shan replied that it was better to start with the good one. They made progress in exploring the path of life and death, and after the earthquake it expanded. But the bad thing was that this trail was noticed by Sun. Yo was shocked by such information and asked how he was involved. The inspector explained that his message to Yuran had caused an earthquake, and that was why they had isolated him. Since it was after his signal that the path began to rapidly expand, adding that in a couple of days they will go in search of Baichu and Su clearly should not miss such an event. Xinghe, meanwhile, was thinking that this self-confident Yo had decided to make him an errand boy. However, at the same time he showed him true strength, Cao wanted to try again to repeat his skill. But at that moment, he was suddenly called out by Chen, who said that he needed to tell the master an important thing. The old man said that his father wanted to see him as a follower and heir, but did not have time to draw up a will. The uncle showed Xinghe the gun and noted that he clearly knew who this weapon belonged to. The guy was horrified. At this time, Yoon brought Yuran a puzzle that she herself could not solve. But whether her daughter could cope with this remained the most important question. Mu asked Baichu who they were, because she had mentioned them that evening. The girl replied that they were hiding in the dark, but she did not know their true goals. Yiren said that after the illness, her consciousness does not work in the usual way, and she does not understand how this happened. Her mother hugged her and said that there was nothing wrong with it. The main thing was that she was fine. At that moment, a nurse entered the room and said that a package had arrived addressed to Bai. Baichu looked carefully at the girl and was perplexed. Yoon asked what was the matter. Suddenly, the young lady announced that she knew her and that she was the one who attacked them that evening. Yiren instantly grabbed the sword and threatened her, demanding to know who hired her. She thought it was the Tao family. However, she turned out to be just a robotic doll, as evidenced by her metal body. Suddenly, the puzzle caught fire in Mu's hands. She called out to her daughter so that Baichu would look at her, inside which was a turtle shell, and on it a map of the trail. She could foresee the trajectory of its changes. Yuran noted that this is a rather strange organism, and many have tried to study it, but have not been able to do so. The rest turned out to be seriously ill. The mother understood that Yizhen had very little chance. The girl asked her to immediately transfer the map to the operational department so that they could definitely find her sister. But Yoon said that they have the opportunity to obtain the eternal spiritual canon to become more influential than everyone else. Baichu was against it, because in this case the chances of saving her sister were scanty, and it was better to transfer this to the operational management. Finally, Bai agreed with her, since this was truly the most important thing. After all, this is her own daughter, and you can't think about any benefit at such a time. Yuran, in turn, was well aware that no more time could be lost because it was unknown what condition Yuran was in. At that moment, the puppet nurse's metal mouth opened, and there was a camera inside, through which Qian watched what was happening and understood that they did not even suspect what they were so easily ready to give up. Then he turned his gaze to his younger brother and asked if he understood what he was talking about. Xinghe urged him not to distract him, because he was just looking at who would go on the path of life and death tomorrow. Cao Seer noticed that he rarely sees him so enthusiastic and advised him to go to bed earlier before a difficult day, adding that he would need it on the trail and that he would have strength at the same time. The brother agreed with him and wished him a good night, noting that he too could use some rest. At this time, Qian suddenly wrote to Shui. She said that Xinghe wants to kill him. The guy thought that No had installed a camera. This means that she doesn't trust him at all. He became curious why Mu doubted him. After which, he sent her a message in which he stated that tomorrow he would kill both Yo and his brother. The next day, the young master set out on the path of life and death. Jung informed him that she had resolved the issue with the license. She added that they had finally developed a cure and thanked the young man for his assistance. The main character looked around and noticed that a huge number of soldiers had volunteered for this operation. Yuran also came, whom he was incredibly happy to see. The girl was wandering among the pandemonium of fighters. Su wondered if after Lu's soul transplant she had fully recovered and there were no complications. In this connection, the teenager decided to check it the old-fashioned way and made a chanterelle window. The perplexed Baichu asked what he was doing, and most importantly, why. The guy immediately removed his hands and replied that he was just trying to distract himself before the long journey. However, Yuran noticed that this window of the fox is used to exorcise evil spirits, after which she moved closer to him and asked what he saw in the window. The young man said that he saw her rosy cheeks, and this indicated that she was in perfect health. And then they decided to check their numbers, which, surprisingly, turned out to be absolutely identical. Yo remarked that this was an incredible coincidence. The young lady agreed with him and suddenly blushed. Su also said that they were supposed to be divided into groups of 3. At that moment, the teenager's ex-girlfriend approached them and said that she had the same number. She looked surprised, allegedly did not recognize him initially. The guy was also at a loss. Stunned, Baichu asked how they knew each other. He didn't know how to explain to her. The young lady introduced herself to Mu Xue and clarified that she was Ye's ex-girlfriend. Yiren also introduced herself and said she was Su's friend. Li noted that she was quite funny. At this moment, Jiang addressed all the Aura warriors and asked if everyone had divided into groups, after which she introduced herself as the senior inspector of the Eastern District and thanked her for participating in the operation. Then she asked to pay attention to the gorge below, which is called the Path of Life and Death. This was a rather dangerous place and they could even die during the operation. They should also act quickly, since the trail approached the city, but at the same time they have a map of the trail, which will significantly increase the chances of success. And as part of increased security, the department provided them with the latest equipment and medicinal herbs. Zhou in turn urged not to waste time and move forward immediately. Shan asked the young master to come to her for a couple of questions. The main character called on Baichu and Shui would go without him. Jiang asked if he liked the new equipment. The young man asked a counter question whether she had really called him to discuss the clothes. In connection with this, the teenager hurried to return to the ranks of the soldiers and go on a mission. But the girl said that Yi Zhan is her favorite and she turns a blind eye to many things. However, if someone poses a threat to her people, then she has no right not to react. Meanwhile, the girls had already gone down into the cave and were talking about how Yo was delaying them again. Unexpectedly, Shui asked Yuran how she met Su. The young lady was surprised. Then she replied that he had saved her life many times and she was very grateful to him. Muli noticed that he had not changed at all since that time. At that moment, a beast was hiding behind her back, who, after waiting for a moment, suddenly jumped out and intended to attack the young girls. But a teenager appeared at the right time and dealt a fatal blow to the predator. The guy approached them rather pathetically and, smiling, asked for forgiveness for being late for the celebration of life. Then he looked at Baichu and promised her that he would definitely bring her sister home. He couldn't get Shan's request out of his head, because there was a possibility that Yuran could turn into a monster, and Jiang asked him in this case to act for sure and kill the monster. Walking further, they came across a sea of blood with strange statues ahead. Yo looked at the map and stated that they needed to get to the stairs. Noticing that these stone structures were made by some kind of crazy person, Yuran said, "There are many dangerous monsters here that have been infected with devilish qi." Su thought that it was Lu talking in her. Zue Mu, in turn, hastened to refute this information, stating that they need to eat the blood fruit on the statue in order to move on. The young master volunteered to go on reconnaissance and urged them to contact Inspector Shan in case of danger. But she said that if Baichu was very afraid, then she could very well return home now. An angry Yuran replied that she would not leave the team and advised her to say less nonsense. The main character, meanwhile, was approaching the fetus, walking through the bloody liquid. Finally taking the bloody fruit, he began to carefully examine it and could not believe that it was meant to be eaten. But for the sake of saving Yuran, he was ready to endure the disgusting taste and bit into the fruit. At that moment, fragments of various memories began to play in his head. The young man fell to his knees and suggested that this fruit was in the head of the girl who became the statue. The girls noticed Yo's condition and rushed to his aid. However, Su urged them not to approach him as it could be very dangerous. Suddenly, a monster rose from the sea of blood and headed towards the guy, and he immediately dealt a strong blow, but the teenager managed to jump away. The self-confident Mu No declared that she would personally deal with this big man and took out her whip. Yo at that time was already infected with demonic qi. His eye turned purple and black crystals appeared on his face. Zui was finally able to bind the demon with her whip, thereby immobilizing him in his movements. The girl said that he was so big but stupid enough and fell into her trap. At that moment, the thug was struck by Baichu's arrow and the monster collapsed to the ground. Enraged, Li asked if she had done this on purpose. Yuran smilingly replied that it had happened by accident. However, the monster rose to its feet again and rushed towards them. The girls backed away. At this time, Su instantly climbed onto the brute and activated his ability. Infected with the devilish qi, the young man said that he would inevitably die, after which a fiery ray passed through the demon's entire body, which literally tore it apart. This time the monster was defeated, and the young master calmly went down to the girls. Zue noted that they could move on, but Yuran asked the guy what was wrong with his face. Yo replied that everything was fine and put his palm to his eye, declaring that he simply needed to eliminate the toxin. After a couple of seconds, the black crystals disappeared from his face. He understood that they should not tell the truth about the bloody fruit at the moment. Su said that this fruit contains devilish qi and clogs the arteries, and Dr. Zheng contracted the disease here. The perplexed Zue noticed that she did not have such information, and this was the first time she had heard about it. Baichu, in turn, said that there is always a way out and they should move on. Yo reported that there is no toxin in the fruits themselves, and a tiny part of the demonic qi is only in the shell. Also, you can get rid of small doses of poison with the help of breathing exercises. In his hand, he twirled white balls, which were the fruit itself, and the red substance was the shell. Yuran was surprised when she felt pure spiritual energy and realized what the fruits actually were. The main character urged them to swallow these pills. There were only 3 of them. Baichu swallowed the first capsule and instantly grimaced. She declared that they had a disgusting taste. Yo noticed that the vile the taste, the more effective the pill, so there's nothing wrong with that. Mu also began to swallow the capsule and thought that Su had really changed. Or it was she who had changed so much. The girl did not take her eyes off him. Suddenly, Qian spoke to them. The stunned Yuran asked what he was doing here. Cao stated that it was only thanks to her that he was here, because she then solved the puzzle. Baichu realized that with the help of that robotic doll, he was able to find out about this. The guy noticed that everyone would be in the black since she would save her little sister, and he would get the eternal spiritual canon. And to reach the end, he will need their help. At this time, they were surrounded by dolls. Yu said that he wouldn't get away with it so easily, but the absolutely calm Yo urged her to calm down. Because he heard a characteristic sound, it was another invasion of animals. Suddenly, they were attacked by huge dragonflies, which Su easily defeated, after which the young man said that soon they would have the opportunity to escape, and they were obliged to take advantage of it. The young master immediately opened a test tube with silicate dope and splashed it around himself. Kyan realized that the teenager was really not as simple as he initially thought. Thus, the monsters surrounded the cow family, and our heroes hurried to flee. Climbing up the stairs, Yuran had only one question, which she hurried to ask Yo. When he managed to take this powder out of the department, Mu noticed that she was least interested in it, adding that now is not the time to sort things out, and it is necessary to find Yi Zhan. Suddenly, they noticed a pile of slaughtered warriors on the steps. They had a very strange uniform. Baichu looked at them and noticed that judging by their aura, they were not people at all. The girl herself didn't understand how she knew about this, but Su was thinking of telling her about Lu's soul. However, declaring that there was a part of another man in her was not the best idea. Unexpectedly, she herself asked the guy where she got the alien consciousness in her head and whether he knew anything about it. At this moment, their dialogue was interrupted by Shui, who said that she had found something interesting. Yuran was shocked, because she saw a piece of her sister's clothing on the warrior's body. Suddenly, an unknown fog began to envelop them. The main character reached out to Beich, but at this time something inexplicable happened. He found himself in the middle of a desert area. The perplexed teenager looked around and saw Zhui's hand sticking out of the ground. Yo instantly pulled her out and began to call Yuran, but in response there was deathly silence. Su urged Mu to look on the map where they were, but the girl said that it did not work. At that moment, a spear suddenly flew at them. The guy pushed Shui away. He himself also jumped to the side, and the weapon flew between them. The young lady did not understand what was happening, and who could remain alive. The young man doubted this. And all this is actually an illusion of haze. In other words, they were in the space of dreams. But she said that she had also heard about this phenomenon and took out her whip. She immediately swung her weapon to find the source of the haze. As a result, a huge whirlwind was created right above her, and suddenly something flashed in it. Zhui realized that it was another spear and hurried to dodge it. Yo, in turn, also dodged the attack, and suddenly the blade turned around and flew upward. Mu Lai urged him to stop this scoundrel from escaping and activated the acceleration seal, with the help of which the young master pushed off with lightning speed and soared into the heights. Seeing an unknown ghostly warrior, Su asked him if he could let them pass so that they could save their friend. However, the ghost remained silent and again pointed his spear at the teenager, which was a refusal to his request. The young man understood that since the fog did not dissipate, he would have to deal with this demon. With just one swing of his blade, Yo eliminated the ghostly guard, thereby sending him to eternal rest, after which he landed absolutely naturally on the stairs to Shui, who noted his incredible strength. Su stated that without her seal, he would not have reached this monster and would not have defeated it. The girl, in turn, smiled and said that she had known him for several days. At this moment, heavy rain suddenly began. Li suddenly became sad. She began to remember that special day in their destiny, when it also rained. But she asked the young man for forgiveness and sadly said that she had to tell him why she was leaving him. Yo replied that now it no longer matters, and after the mission he will go to study medicine, and she will go abroad again. Zhui noted that it is good to do what she loves and is incredibly happy for him. Miu didn't know if they could start over in real life, but she really wanted it. Then she pulled herself together and began to convince herself that everything was in the past and she needed to focus on saving Yi Zhan. Seeing her condition, Su asked what was the matter. The young lady urged him not to be distracted and to find Yuran. After all, they never found her after returning from the dream space. The young man said that they really need to hurry. At this time, Baichu opened her eyes and could not understand what had happened, because she saw a piece of her sister's clothing and then lost consciousness. She was sitting in the car, but remembered that she should be on the path of life and death. Yuran assumed that these were memories in the real world. It was raining outside. Suddenly, Yurhan turned to her and asked if she was ready to perform. The girl was shocked. Her sister noticed that she had a somewhat pale complexion. After some time, she performed in a large hall where people admired her performance. Baichu realized a moment later that she was at a student festival. Among the spectators, she saw her beloved Yo. Her heartbeat increased sharply. Yuran screamed his name loudly, but he didn't seem to hear her and no one paid any attention. Suddenly, a curtain fell right in front of her. The girl got scared and backed away. She understood that these were really memories because everything happened like that day. At that moment, Yizhan called out to her and said that her sister played incredibly beautifully and everyone liked her performance, adding that great success awaited her, but she also did not want to perform. Baichu did not understand how long this would last. Little sister said that she was the best star in their academy. At this moment, she suddenly transformed into a monster with a bright purple shell. Her face sharply frowned and she said that she was incredibly glad to see them, after which Yuran stabbed her and broke the musical instrument. Having thereby injured her, the girl licked her bloody finger and noticed that she tasted like her sister. Yuran was extremely sad to realize that she had truly turned into a monster. Then the distraught Baichu attacked her again with her whip, but the young lady managed to jump to the side. She grabbed the sword and asked why her sister was behaving this way and what was happening to her. Yuran replied that it was too late to ask this question and again rushed to the attack. Yuran continued to fight back and could not believe that Baichu had gone crazy. Finally, she explained the reason for her indignation towards her, stating that when they were attacked, she left her for dead and from that moment on, she no longer has a sister. After all, everyone always admired only her and said that Yuran was the best, without thinking about how she felt at that time. And she was just an appendage, and no one needed her. At that moment, Yizhan knocked out her sword and bound her with her whip. Baichu asked her for forgiveness and stated that she simply did not want to disturb her such a vulnerable nature. And they can fix everything. They just need to return home and calmly discuss everything. However, the sister was not in the mood for a calm conversation and urged her not to deceive at least now, after which she threw her aside and said that she had always behaved like a role model. At the same time, she was afraid of her own drives and desires, and kept talking about the need to become stronger. But she was constantly looking for protection from the outside, because in fact she is a dummy and has always been a coward. Finally, Yuran agreed with her and said that she was really afraid of everything. But when she fell into the abyss, everything changed. After all, now she had gone through absolute hell to find her and bring her home. Yuran attacked her again, but Baichu caught her whip. Naturally, the younger sister did not believe her and began to attack again. The girl said that since childhood she was afraid of hurting her and thought that she could not cope with the role of an older sister. But as long as she was next to her, her soul became calm, and with her support she didn't have to worry about anything. And that's why she found the strength to come here to find her and save her. Yiran literally began to beg Yuran to calm down and finally return home. She accused her of destroying the dream world and admitted that she wanted to kill her even earlier. The older sister was shocked by the younger sister's words and could not believe what was happening. At this moment, a young master suddenly appeared with Xue and ordered her to hide immediately. Yuran instantly cut their way with her whip and demanded that they not interfere in their family affairs, adding that this is the first serious quarrel between them and their sister in their lives, and they cannot stop them. Meanwhile, Wang told Zhang that they now had a chance to find out the reason for the appearance of the path of life and death. Then he stated that Chen should be in the group with Yuran and Yi, but someone else went instead. Consequently, they had a spy. Shan immediately contacted Fan and asked when he was repairing the firewall if he had come across something strange. Jinan replied that he was just about to report how someone had hacked their system, but he managed to track this person. Her name is Shui Nuo, but she also used many other names, and she was the one who launched the worm into their network. Also, one of the pseudonyms of this ghost is Li Muxue, but what her actual goals are unknown.